Hello, you're very welcome to the Overlap Rugby podcast. I'm Shane, that's Daragh.
How you doing?
Two brothers from Ireland discussing the rugby. This is episode number 44.
That's correct.
Yeah, and a lot to discuss. No international, no Six Nations rugby happened over the weekend just gone, but there were some domestic things that we'll get through as well. But obviously this weekend is the penultimate weekend of the Six Nations. And so as such we're going to be breaking down those games, or kind of previewing those games, I suppose.
Yep, for sure.
Lots of good ones, juicy fixtures
totally
this week, to be honest.
Yep. It's been a newsworthy week perhaps for off-field reasons, and
that's true. Yeah,
we'll get to those, namely the World League and then the Welsh story. I must note that I'm quite pleased that the timing of the podcast worked out, in the sense that we weren't uploading or commenting on the World League amidst the sort of uncertainty and fire that was last week's leaked proposal. There's a new proposal today, and there's a sense of intrigue about it that it can be discussed with a bit more measure.
It's obvious now that it's a more open discussion rather than just an ultimatum. That seemed to be the tone of last week. It's like, they can't do this, they'll ruin rugby.
Yes,
and it's like that was quite a bit of hysteria that I'm quite glad we were.
Well, listen, if it was the proposal, there really was justified hysteria, but we will get into that, and we'll also get into the Welsh regions. Debacle is the word.
It's a bit of nonsense coming from over there currently, but we'll get into that towards the later end of the podcast, I think.
Exactly.
But to start, we're going to rightly start with the billing at the Six Nations. Six Nations is where it's at, and this weekend we have Scotland v Wales, then we have England Italy, the Saturday games, and then Ireland France on Sunday, which is I'm not as mad about Sunday games, which is a bit annoying.
I'm just happy to have a game back in Dublin.
It's true. It's true. Lansdowne Road, Aviva, we looking good. A load of French people in town, it'd be class.
Absolutely.
But I suppose what we've been normally doing for this whole tournament is go in sequence, so we'll have to bite our tongues on the Ireland game, which we will. And we're first going to look at Scotland v Wales, which is a very interesting one. That's actually probably close to my game of the weekend anyway, in terms of just matchup. But that and Ireland, to be honest, they're both really good fixtures and traditional fixtures that go back pretty well. But Scotland in Murrayfield, always dangerous. A wounded Scotland in Murrayfield, a somewhat written off Scotland in Murrayfield, possibly even more so. Wales on course for a Grandslam. If history's anything to go on, normally Wales are quite a streaky team that can go in either bad runs or good runs, and if they're on a good run, it's very rare that they get thrown off it. Certainly they seem on course to be going for Grand Slam deciders, if not Grand Slams this year, so it'll take a lot for Scotland to stop that, I think.
Scotland have almost bigger issues than all that on their minds. It's just about starting to get things right for them, really. Pressure's off them in a sense, on them in another sense, and just that they're not. There was some optimism after that Italy game, but to be honest, it was muted somewhat, and then a very, very disappointing performance against Ireland, and not as terrible a performance in Paris, but just a
bad result.
And a backline that wasn't firing, and amidst a pretty crippling injury crisis for sure. But they're just to my running theory on it is that there's a conflict of styles that's running through the team. Between what Gregor Townsend is talking about of is like playing at a fast tempo, everything is free flowing. It goes through Finn, it goes through Hugh Jones, it goes through Stuart Hogg, and
none of whom were there.
Well, Finn is there back this week, obviously, but Hugh and Stuart are still not. And so then there's this through line where instead they're vaguely trying to play the same way,
but with Edinburgh personnel.
A
lot more.
Sam Johnsons and. It's just it's not clicking at the moment. They're not doing anything right in attack. Their pack are actually doing a functional enough job, I would say. They're not doing anything remarkable, but their scrums are holding up, and until their replacements come on, their scrums are holding up. And then the line-out's doing functional enough, and they're not being crippled like in an old school Scottish way around the fringes by anybody. They are defending actually admirably enough, but just not attacking. It's the attack that's killing them.
And it's been a curious head scratching one to watch. It kind of feels like they need to evolve a bit more then, because we were touching on it in a few weeks gone by, how impatient they can look with their trying to cling on to that attacking identity, but it's not quite on, and then they're just like leaking cheap possession on a lot of the time, which is costing them games, big game moments, kind of passing them by. And it's like they've still got those great they do need to maintain that edge where they go for those tries. They need to maintain that kind of killer instinct in attack
need to have
be
it,
going
for
for
sure.
have it.
Yeah.
But they need to have more ways of playing the game than that, and like that's been a good little progression here in terms of what Edinburgh have done in the domestic season, and filtering through to, like you're saying, the pack standing up in Paris and not getting bullied and rolled over, which was impressive. But it's like the net result being the same, because the backline was misfiring and they just got outshot in a gunfight. They got kind of outshot. And like it feels like they're at a point where it was. We were discussing it, and you made the good point. It's like we have this analogy going that they're very similar to Eddie Jones, or not Eddie Jones, Eddie O'Sullivan's Ireland from years ago, in that they had like a wonderful superstars in the back line, really creative, possibly one of the most devastating teams in the world at the time of first phase, like set plays, really good strike plays, innovative stuff in the back line, a bit of a softness in the middle of it though, like the pack, despite having some great men in there, like couldn't stand up, couldn't keep a scrum up, always had to operate on 30% possession, and so found very creative attacking ways of quickly turning that into points, which is great to watch. And especially coming from a place where Ireland had been, which is where the analogy is actually more apt, is like Scotland for years, like Ireland, where for years before that kind of iteration with that generation coming through, were just so bad. Like people who remember Irish rugby in the 90s were just utterly depressing viewing.
Truly,
nothing good about it. Like barely even a player to be proud of that you could kind of cite a lot of the time. It was just really wojous stuff. And Scotland similarly, all through the noughties, were such a poor team. Like, and they brought games to ugly, turgid, slow places where they're trying to rough people up, but then there's penalties and drop balls and scrums, and it's like nothing is flowing about the game at all, and their only best good chance to stay even in a respectable state is to try and just drag the game into the mud and hopefully cling on. And they weren't even losing bonus points, it was just saving face in that era. So like coming from that place, the best thing you can do is just encourage techers, a bit of catch pass, a bit of go for the try, a bit of flair. And that's what this Glasgow and now this Scotland side have finally filtered in, is just that. But what we found with the Eddie O'Sullivan experiment, as we were harking back to it last week in the 07 World Cup, where they ended up probably overtraining and not reaching that level. But it's like once you get to a level of consistently doing that, the little gaps start to reveal themselves against the top teams, those little inches that are missing, some of the work that's not being done certainly in the type, but also in just when games go different places. They're not like, they don't have the full toolkit yet, and it's just they've only been developing so far, and it feels like it's been a bit of a stutter in that what has been kind of quite an exponential growth if you're counting it back from Glasgow right the way through to what Scotland have been doing for the last few years. This is definitely one of the more notable step backs that has happened even since that cycle, I would say, has gone. So it really needs to be a refocus and build another layer on top, because you see where Ireland are at now, where that generation has played, done really well, got some unprecedented success, which is something that this Scotland side could still do with things like Triple Crowns, things like a few wins.
It was a very, very different era in the sense that the main competitor in terms of the Six Nations was France. Yeah. So Triple Crown became sort of a cool consolation prize. Yes. Whereas now it's impossible to conceive of a season where Triple Crown is won and the Grand Slam doesn't come along with it.
Yes, that's true. So that's definitely, the landscape has changed in that regard. But like not even silverware, bits like scalps. They got a
Calcutta Cup last year.
They did.
That was huge.
That's true. That's and that's like, you have to tip your hat to them. They played phenomenally. It is a day
that they'll remember.
Yeah, but, for sure. But it's only that. And you're talking about World Cup cycles. The next one now needs to be a big, because we're already their lineup in this one isn't very good. But they've built a lot to grow a lot in that time. They've added a huge dimension to this competition. They need to be adding their next layer and becoming a bit more of a professional, cohesive side, which they're not quite at yet. Like contrasting with that with Wales, who are the opposite. They have like literally been growing for longer than any team in a sustained kind of setup where the coach has been rigid and the personnel have rotated. Like, you're thinking Sam Warburton came in, did his whole career, and it's now finished, and we're still here with the same setup, same coaches. Like, phenomenal, and it's all kind of built off blueprints that people like Sam Warburton put in place, but other kind of key men over the years. So Wales are looking like the most mature side in this kind of competition this year, to be honest. They look very, very assured in what they're doing. A little bit like they took some liberties in Rome with their selection, their rotation, and probably paid the price for that in terms of being a bit too casual with their 3-pointers and then kind of falling asunder, but they still got the win.
Yeah.
And they're just in Grandslam or bust mode, and it's Scotland standing in their way this time. I kind of backed them to go up there and take it.
Yeah, I mean, can't disagree with a lot of that. I think from Scotland's perspective, it's just got to be about I think getting the attack right, and it's very dependent on, obviously they don't have Hugh Jones and Stuart Hall, but it's very dependent. They'll lean a lot on Finn Russell, but on what the Welsh defensive setup does. Yeah, because I think they'll back Blair Kinghorn and they'll back the wings, whoever they pick. I would like to see
Darcy Graham get in there.
Over Sean Maitland. Yeah,
he scored a couple of tries for Sarries at the weekend. Sean Maitland.
Yeah, did he really?
Bagged a brace. No. But he's been playing pretty poorly in Scotland.
Maybe he'll come good, but you'd think they'd back those guys to execute simple plays if they get outside Jay Davis. That would be plan A. That soft outside of the Welsh defence, where you get guys like George North, who's always been
ropey reads sometimes.
And Josh Adams on the other side, quite an inexperienced defender at test level, and those are the kind of matchups they'll want to generate. What a lot of teams have done is adjusted to the Scottish way and the Glasgow way as well, by extension, of just zipping wide, and they just defences are now resourcing that area pretty well. So what you'd like to see is Scotland adjusting to that without the Finn Russell chipping behind and those kind of impatient plays, and maybe just being a little more patient, backing themselves, maybe to actually get a bit of ground gain, maybe
forward in the tight,
catch Wales off. You got Josh Strauss in there, you got Grant Gilchrist, you got Ben Toulis, you got guys who can
kind of want Laidlaw marshalling that then. Orchestrating some purchase around the fringes would be nice.
They do need to stay true to themselves in the sense that it does need to be quick, and the offensive breakdown is going to be massive. We know how good Wales are at slowing up ball.
Yes, indeed.
That's an area that they can't afford to be sloppy on. You gotta get because
Wales will win penalties if they're going if the clean out is sloppy. They'll survive that, but more often than not as well, like they'll be just there to try and spoil and harass and then keep their width.
It's good that they back themselves off first to do things with ball in hand, and then conversely, like when Scotland kick the ball a lot of the time, you see it happen after attacks have broken down. So it's maybe 2 or 3 unsuccessful attempts at breaking the line, and the ball slows up.
Aimless kick. Well, not an aimless kick, but
whether it's a
fanciful kick,
whether it's a box kick or an attempted game-breaking kick by Finn Russell, or just a deep kick. The kicks come in predictable ways after an attack is done. You'd like to see them work in, especially if the Welsh wingers are pushed up,
which they can do. Yeah,
just a few off maybe first phase or second phase, not even contestables, but maybe just long territory kicks. Play the game, play just a bit smarter, and vary what they do with the ball a little bit, which will just give a little bit of purchase in the Welsh defence, and a little bit of uncertainty for when they do go wide, because right now things are just getting a bit stale and predictable.
It's true. That's why the injection of Finn will definitely help with that, because they were
man's on fire. He scored a beautiful try last week for Racing.
He will be there to try and marshal those troops around. Like it was unfortunate, and like we were saying it as well last week in our review of the game just gone. But like to see Peter Horne so out of his depth in Paris there at 10, it's just such a shame, because like even coming off the bench, your man Hastings looked like a world beater just by kind of looking a bit more like a 10. Like even the structures, that the shape they were in once he came in resembled more of a backline than what they had with the 3 centres in there. And it was just none of it was gelling or working. And now Finn back in order. Like against Ireland, there were some good little signs from that centre pairing as well. They're positive ones. They didn't play their best game at all, and it's still the jury's out in terms of their centres, it feels like, because now Hugh Jones feels like the incumbent because he's that little bit of X factor that they want to play.
I'd like to see Johnston, not Sam Johnson, but Johnston from Edinburgh, 13. And then
he's playing really well. He scored a try as well at the weekend.
Bubble bath centres.
Johnson and Johnson. Yeah. Just don't get them in your eyes.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that would be a nice little variation. As industrious as Nick Grigg attempted to be.
Yeah, Nick Grigg actually had a very disappointing game, which is unfortunate because I quite like Nick Grigg and his hustle.
Hustle is the word.
Yeah.
He's never quite been a test level guy.
No, that's true.
Yeah. And the other thing you'd want to see from the Scottish attack is just positivity in terms of the lines that they're running and the pace that they play at. It's so key.
Yeah.
Last week they made a few line breaks and there was just no tracking runners until the very end when Ali Price managed to get a try. That was the only tracking run that was ran all day.
It's not good enough.
That's what you need. Offloads and tracking runs. That's their recipe for success against these top sides.
Yeah. And Scotland are in a position certainly now, and as part of their it suits their kind of code of how they want to play as well. But like tries need to be what they get, and they need to be converting early on if they're getting opportunities. If Wales are a little off the pace, that's when they need to be on it and grabbing those tries, and like ideally 14-0. You know, kind of jump into a lead and then hold on to it.
Making Welsh fans gasp after a loose kick by Anscombe, and then all of a sudden Blair Kinghorn's coming at you and
flying back
coming at you.
His best Stewie Hogg impression.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And he's not Stewie Hogg. They are pretty tasty.
He's pretty nifty off kick return as well. Yeah. He has good instincts. He tries to link up and pass, which is good in a fullback.
So that's huge. But the thing that you'd be looking for if you're looking to see what you'll see, I think, pretty early on which way this game is going to go.
I think so,
just based on how hungry Scotland look.
The collision zone will be kind of telling as well. If Wales are monstering them, then that's a long day.
Remember the focus that they were playing with against England. I mean, there was a lot of looseness. There was crazy passes, but there was also just this hunger. They were off the line quickly in attack. They were resourcing the breakdown well, but then it was just quick ball.
It was a day of days. It was one of those days where it all came off well for them as well, but the ambition they showed was
as a result of the intensity and the focus and the drive that they were playing with, and that's so key this week for them.
Absolutely. Well, they need something out of the tournament. If they meekly lose this game, that'll thoroughly be it'll be Fortress Murrayfield kind of ousted as an idea, certainly in recent history, because that's 3 on the bounce pretty much, apart from the Italy game at home, which is like that's just no good
and
at all.
It wasn't the crack last year at all with them, so
that's a diminishing return if that's to be the case.
I think
it's still risky for Wales. It's a very risk laden game, and they'd be fools to be looking past it to Ireland, which there's potential for it. I don't suspect that they will, but you never know. And even big teams
awkward week for them with the whole Welsh regions thing as well.
That too, like that coming up could not be worse timing as far as just cutting off your nose to spite your face.
There's stories of players in the regions were sort of texting the guys in the squad to see if they had an in on what's going on.
And it's I'm busy playing for Wales here. What's going on? We're merging with who now? What? No, that seems absolutely baffling, and hopefully it won't be a disruption. But disruption is exactly what it is.
Came out and said that it actually had been a little bit. It's obviously taking the focus off a little bit, and he was disappointed.
Because it's such a damp squid to throw into the mix there on your Grandslam England beating week,
crazy. But they from their perspective in terms of what to do with the ball, one of the things that I'd like to see, I'm still a little worried. Like, I think they're a very good team. I think they can, as we've reiterated a few times, they have a great versatility to them. They can play in a lot of different ways. But that 10-12 axis of Anscombe and Hadley Parks is not very. It hasn't been very creative. Anscombe has struggled a little bit, and they've just in offense they've really failed to play Jay Davis.
Jay Davis isn't getting into that. That's been actually a problem with this Six Nations more than even autumn. He was more impactful than he has been. And last week, there you could make the argument that they picked and jammed and kept it tight, and the dividends eventually came tactically. But it's still true that their centres just didn't get into the game in any kind of offensive way. They didn't seem proactive with the ball. They were either link men or dummy men, and it feels like there's more to offer, certainly from Jay Davis with ball in hand.
100%.
And it's a big weapon that they're kind of currently just not quite getting into the game, into the mix properly, and this being a week for it because Scotland notoriously soft in the centres.
Well, that's what you want to be testing.
So it's like, you want to be throwing your Hadley Parks, to be honest, despite not being that creative, is actually not a terrible option against that Scotland pack, because he's just going to be big and charging betwixt them. And
Hadley Parks and Jay Davis in the centres is not totally dissimilar from Jamie Roberts and Jay Davis in the centres. That worked so well in the Warren Ball era, in the Six Nations against these type of sides.
Indeed,
it would be like Warren Ball, which we've much derided on this podcast. Is a good option and strategy for this game. And when Wales, they can, the trumpet that they can blow about themselves most is that they can play in many different ways. This week you'd be thinking Warren Ball all day. It's big men running short lines into the soft centre of the Scots, holding a lot of the ball, and
eventually finding your wingers.
Size. Suck them in, then go wide.
Fact, I suspect this could be a week for a Jay Davis try. As well, like it feels like it's on the cards.
That's the winning picture. The question mark is over Anscombe, who's been backed by the coaches, and his ability to play the guys into the game a bit more.
It's true. It's like how is he utilising it? I kind of have a feeling about him similar to your take on Carberry, that he's a better 15 than he is a 10, but with Liam Williams there, you don't need a better 15. You need a useful option at 10. He's probably closer to the 10 jersey than the 15 jersey with Liam Williams playing the way he is.
But that said, it's worth mentioning that your man Patchell is playing now a few weeks back and still not with a look in for Scarlets, and he's a very competent 10 who, it seems strange to me, isn't getting a go now in the Six Nations. Granted, it's a Grandslam run.
He just kind of missed the boat, I suppose, in terms of the squad for the tournament. But
I don't know if Anscombe's the guy though, and that's the point. Like, I think Bigger's a great bench
it's like
man,
when you think of it though, in terms of how much game time has Patchell had over the last few years, you're just giving Anscombe a bit of that game time now in advance of the World Cup. So then you really do have three legitimate options come World Cup time.
It's true,
with Patchell and Bigger and himself.
There's an argument that Patchell might be your top guy come World Cup time though, and he's going to be coming.
It could be.
Cold,
it's not.
Perhaps.
Maybe so. They do have the warm up games, and like Scarlets are still in the running for post season stuff in the Pro 14 anyway. So you'll have some competitive fixtures to come anyway. Maybe that's why they're leaving him in the region they need him. He needs to bail them out. So like he's still getting game time. I'm less concerned about that. Like, I think that's. Some of that's blown out of proportion a little bit. Like, in terms of that was the other thing, that was the arguments that were coming forward for giving players minutes now in terms of affecting their World Cup form. And it feels like form goes in cycles that are way different from this. Like, you're going to play yourself into form for the end of the Six Nations and then go through the end of the regular season. Then there will be a tapering off period again.
World Cup camp.
Which will involve a bit of rest and recovery, and then a bit of getting sharp again. And it's like
quite a bit of strength and conditioning to start off with.
Exactly.
Then playing some rugby, then getting yourself back in the groove, playing some warm up matches.
So as far as minutes are concerned in the Six Nations cycle, as far as affecting your World Cup form, I don't fully buy it. But what I do think is the value in the minutes is just giving players who haven't had the time there a bit of time there, so there's some reference point for confidence.
Sure.
And that's the more utility you're getting out of it.
Yeah.
And so for Anscombe, maybe it's wise that they're sticking with him, because you never know if, like the New Zealand template of however many men going down, and then suddenly you need your third or fourth choice guy to be able to go in there and do the job.
Yeah. Line out's going to be important for Wales as well. Scotland do have a couple of steals in them. Breakdown's going to be a massive area. Scotland, we were shooting this on Wednesday night, and Scotland have not as of yet named their team.
Yeah, that'll be tomorrow as we're uploading.
I haven't even checked the squad yet, but I assume even with 40 minutes of rugby that they've brought, and maybe this is a bold assumption, but Hamish Watson, if he's in there, good. If he's not, he probably should be. As good as Jamie Ritchie's been, you could even put both of them on.
We could.
With Josh Strauss at 8, but they need that breakdown competition to go right.
Who else was playing in the row or in the back row?
I think it was it
last week.
Magnus Bradbury.
That's right. Yeah. He's he's a big ball storming kind of ball carrier. He might be a good option off the bench. I like, because I'm not in favour of yanking Ritchie out of there. I actually think he's been trying pretty hard and doing some good work, as has Strauss, doing some good shifts. So get Hamish back in. 2 7s is disruptive. That would be good, because they're good off turnover ball traditionally anyway.
Be huge. It'd be a great way to stop Wales when your defence may not be able to.
If you're going to be soaking a lot of physical hits off short balls, maybe. position 2 poachers in around there. Yeah,
exactly, and just harry their scrum half, because Welsh
True.
scrum halves are making errors, especially if harried.
Yes, I know. But Welsh scrum halves are like a breed all of their own. They have their own little halfbacks that all kind of vaguely play the game the same kind of frenetic, crazy way, where it's like in equal parts brilliant and chaotic and crazy at the same time, and sometimes catastrophic at that as well. Like some of Gareth Davis's plays during the first couple of weeks were really poor off the bench. He was coming off the bench, and
Alan Davis's performance against Italy was appalling as well.
Really annoyed me.
Do you know what? Trying to buy penalties. Yeah,
but it's so soft and slow then as well, because the net result is that you fall on your arse trying to buy a penalty. The ref says no, get up, and then you just have to get up and go again, and you've created what was a class 1 second ruck has now become a 6 second ruck because you're dicking around on the floor. Stop doing that. For sure. And so from Scotland's perspective, harrying breakdown is obviously massive. In terms of shutting Scotland down, I have a theory that, you know, a positive way of playing Finn Russell is to present him with false pictures. You've had it, it's a good theory where it's like if you're giving a staggered line to invite a chip, he's more often than not going to go for it. He's like a dog with a car sometimes. When he sees something, he's like, oh,
he's heads up all day, and it's working for him at the moment. But exactly that, you need to like disguise the sweeper, give him the picture of an outside in rush that's shutting off the outside, and invite that chip, and then the sweeper is just there. That's
ideally counter off it as well.
Exactly. Those are the kind of false pictures that you want to present. And other than that, you know, it's obvious we talked about from Scotland's perspective about solving it, but plan A for Scotland is to get outside them. Wales shouldn't be letting that happen. You've got to source the width of the field and tell Scotland you have to come through us, you have to suck us in if you want to go wide, and challenge them to do that.
This is it. Like Scotland, I would hope, should be picking I would be going Toulouse and
well, of course Johnny Gray is the incumbent.
Johnny Gray was there last week, and
was he?
I think so. Yeah.
No, I know.
Oh, I know, right? Yeah. But no, I would be going with them just to get that ball running going, because I actually rate the two boys and what they've been doing for Edinburgh all week as 100%. Exactly what they need to suck there. Like, that's the kind of go forward that they need.
McAnally as well,
another one. And he's one prone to get
Edinburgh are missing those guys so much at the moment.
Yeah,
like it's telling.
Costing their team. Their season is actually
crumbling
capitulating without their spine.
All for the sake of Scottish defeats.
Yes, indeed. Glorious or not so glorious Scottish defeats. And could this be another glorious Scottish defeat, perhaps?
I think they would just be relieved right now to get a performance that resembles something of what they competence.
Yeah, like something that looks like Scotland, because they haven't. And like I was saying, like we were talking, bringing back that mantra or that mission statement that Gregor Townsend was making, that we want to play the fastest rugby in the world, which is like lovely, noble thought, but of late they've been the second quickest team on pitch, let alone in the world. Like they've been slower. They've been slower than themselves, but also than the opponents. So it's it's not good.
Even when keeping it tight, it is good practice for Scotland to be moving quickly. Getting offloads,
and whether that means, like we were saying last week, maybe dropping Greg, not entirely. I would like get him onto the bench maybe and bring in not Ali Price, but George Horn.
George Horn's not in the squad for this week. I heard that much. So it is Ali Price. And
it is going to be Ali Price. This is what I'm saying though, is to not pick Ali Price and to pick George Horn, and failing that, pick Henry Purgos.
Henry Purgos gets no love.
He's good scrummy, and he's quick as well, which is in the mould that this Scotland team want to be playing that way, it means yes, you're going to need a helter-skelter quick scrummy who can feed Finn, so then everything comes off Finn pretty much. If you want to play that way for 50 minutes to 60 minutes and then bring Greg Laidlaw on, or try and play that way for the first 40 minutes, if it's not working, bring Greg Laidlaw on. It's a good little argument. It's a bit more of a controlled, you can mix the tempo up, but I know that there's been a lot of calls for Greg just being like, it's probably illustrative, and there's probably some truth in it, that it's just a clash of styles going on. Like I like on paper the balance that someone like Laidlaw brings with a guy like Finn at 10. Like on paper that looks like it should be good, because there's a little bit of everything in that partnership. But
sense and sensitivity,
sense and nonsense. But sometimes Greg is a little too slow, it's a little too tight, and like certainly they've just been knocked for confidence, so they're just fractionally slower anyway. So maybe an injection of pace from somewhere to try and spark that thing into life. there's always a risk with that it could just go catastrophically
There
wrong
is,
as
but
well.
it's
But something does need sparking into life for them.
Certainly, the dual identity of the team has yet to be married into something that's cohesive and
it's
makes
very
sense.
two-faced kind of. It's instant good and bad in a set. Very often you're getting those.
The ideal would be to see boys like Toulouse and Gilchrist, attacking those fringes and running off one another and getting offloads going, and then generating quick ball that's ahead of the game line, that's feeding the back line with quick ball against a fractured line. That's how they marry, and then it's just another string to the bow of the attack. But we're yet to see that.
No,
and again, it's like you're talking about Wales, who are, in terms of shutting down that game,
but also in terms of cohesion, like Scotland desperately seeking cohesion, Wales looking cohesive, cohesive and strong. So it's a big ask even for them to get that kind of purchase around the fringes, because Wales are as well as good at harrying and creating long tackles into ruck sequences. They're also pretty good at stuffing offloads or targeting the ball as well and being a bit awkward. So it's a big ask, but you need them in doing it.
And certainly you would need, and almost to sum up, it's got to be, for Scotland's picture, it's got to be there's got to be a greater intensity from your guys to their guys. You got to be catching them cold and striking and not taking your foot off the neck. Then
that's it.
And from Wales's perspective, it's just about not letting that happen. If you can match Scotland for intensity, if you can keep the game to a narrow score, you'd probably back your experience and your general superiority to see
as well as their second half form, because like Scotland, as well as doing like firing things, they struggle in the second half. Things like against Ireland, I think in their last few performances against Ireland, they've not scored a point in the second half. They do taper off even when they have their full squad available, whereas Wales do the opposite. They can soak a lot and look a bit rudderless in the first half and then come back at you, and they really do. So like you're saying, just don't be caught cold by going 21 points down or something before you start to play, which can happen when you're sleepwalking into a game that's not as big as the game next week.
And you can't sleep on Finn Russell, not for 1 second.
No, exactly, because he'll make a play in that exact second. So it's like there's always that potential there with Scotland, which is why we love them.
We do.
Even at Edinburgh, I think it's a big ask, just because I know that Welsh juggernauts, when they get rolling, are very, very tough to stop. And
when is the last time you had like a clear Welsh Grandslam that was on that failed?
I can't recall.
It's a good question, isn't it? Usually they just get it done.
If they're not winning the Grand Slam, if they lose in week 1 and then they're not winning the Grand Slam, then it's a pretty rudderless kind of bad tournament, and they can end up finishing in the bottom half. But it's not to say that next year they won't win a World Cup or win a World Cup or a Grand Slam. They're still always thereabouts, and
100%.
This year they're definitely there.
100%. We'll move on to England against Italy, which is the afternoon game. Perhaps a little more straightforward. This is the game in Twickenham.
I don't know.
2 years ago, it was Conor O'Shea Day. This fixture.
It was lovely tactics. I love a good tactic. It wasn't rugby though.
It was a game of rugby. Eddie's got to get over it.
It was not a game of rugby. It was a beautiful game of rugby. I thoroughly enjoyed that game of rugby.
It was one of my favourite.
It really was.
Favourite halves of rugby.
That's it. But beautiful stuff. Featuring, and it was Roman Poit at the centre of it as well, of course. Like whenever there's that level of baffling confusion going on, you guaranteed that Roman's at the middle of it all.
It's a great line. I'm not the referee, but not the coach line. But it was actually, it was in the moment. It was probably not correct in the sense that they were just asking for a rules clarification from the ref. Which is not an unreasonable request.
No, it's not. It was obtuse. His response was like, yes, funny, but also like, what are you doing? Like, you need to communicate all of these things to the players so that there's clarity, and not handbags, which happens at the ensuing breakdown but tackle apparently. So it's just like, it was a funny old game. I don't think we're seeing anything like that, not least because they've kind of augmented that rule, so it can't happen again. But like what we have seen is a bit more growth from Italy. So there's cause for some muted optimism from the point of view of performance. Like ideally, they're hoping to do something similar to what Japan did to them in autumn. Catch them thinking we need to be put. Well, the danger is coming off a loss. It's very hard for them to be going in with that, because they were rolling in.
The Italy game is the Italy game. Italy and Twickenham, they're not going to be as screwed in as they would be for a big game. But the fact that they're coming off a loss, a defeat without a bonus point, in
in Cardiff means that yes, they'll be bulling for running in a load of tries, and I suspect they'll probably get them as well. Like Italy, as good as they have been and as combative and tough against Wales and Ireland, they made it awkward, made it a bit messy at times. Executed better with ball in hand than they've been doing. Tito Tibaldi being back means they can kind of kick themselves into better areas of the pitch to play.
He's very much a key man for them. I would say Tito and the back three are huge because he's like, we all know the limits of Tommy Allen. He's a good runner of a ball, but he doesn't kick. So Tibaldi is their whole kicking game, and exiting is going to be crucial for them. And it's vital that they don't exit. Like, soft exits really annoy me, where you just get the ball in your own 22 and you basically see like you're going to just kick it to them about 20 metres up the field and give them an attacking line out or a ball in field. And England, in either of those scenarios, are just bull rushing for a try straight away. So it's just the tactics, just get it into Italy's 22 and they'll present you with a good opportunity to score a try. That's no good. So you'd like to see a couple of contestables in there. Like I know Johnny May has been great at defusing bombs, and whoever they go for in the right wing is going to be no slouch as well. But they got to look for those matchups and back their wingers who are big guys, or even sending Campagnaro down that channel perhaps. You could mix it up. But it would be a good little variation for them. Probably more preferable than having one of the outside backs do the kicking. Hayward can kick maybe.
He can.
But exit's going to be crucial for them.
It's true.
And then territory in field as well.
They still they don't like to play any rugby in their 22 at all. They exit pretty much as soon as possible, which is where those slightly hurried kind of box kicks and otherwise come from. So even if we're going to go pass left to right, they haven't really been shown the confidence to do that, to kind of exit with a bit of passing.
They haven't. I mean, they can pass the ball.
Oh, they can, but it's just I haven't seen it from them when they're in that area. So it's like, they need to, first up, same as we always say, like, tackle. And they did very well against Ireland in that capacity. Like, Ireland weren't maybe challenging them with quite the subtlety or speed that they ought to have been, but they were making their front up tackles, which is something that haven't been able to say for literally most of Conor O'Shea's tenure here. It's been frustrating because I couldn't even judge the Italian kind of defensive system, because I just didn't know, because it felt like it never got that far. The tries were all terribly soft from just losing contacts and missing tackles, 100%. Whereas that has tended to happen a bit less this tournament, which is good. And they've been stuffing they've been managing to have a few successful defensive sets, which is good.
Negative defensive plays. They were pretty flawless against Ireland in that capacity, but Ireland do have a much more limited attack than England at the moment, and so it was more predictable. It was just about making those tackles, whereas against England they're going to have to be
there'll be doubts, there'll be Owen Farrell picking passes, and there'll be Manu Tuilagi running down the channel, the 12 channel. There's a lot of purchase to be had there for them. I actually just can't see it not going England's way when that's the lineup and that's the matchup. It's just when they still have that bad habit, plus you marry that with a bit of speed and deception from the screen moves they're running, with Farrell picking the right pass. It's a problem. 100%. I think it's just a terrible matchup. Really, it really is. Like, it's one of the worst. It's puts them in the prime position to get a hiding, more so than most other games at this juncture, when they've developed as much as they have, even as a developed rugby team, which is good. They do look more like a rugby team than they've ever had. They look a bit cohesive. They look like they vaguely have a plan that they want to execute. They look like they have a few tactics they want to work in. But even at that, matchup wise now, this is just terrible stylistically. Like, England are all over them, all over the park. They're outgunned.
There's a few, like, it's always that sort of tier 2 side playing tier 1 side mantra. Like, if they can manipulate England into just kicking a bit, putting a few more attacking kicks in, the onus will then be put in their back three to cover those kicks. But Hayward's a quick guy. Like, Hayward's going to have a lot of
Hayward's
pressure.
Had a great tournament, in fact. Great.
Apart from that very soft defensive play against Wales.
True. Liam Williams going through for a shortcut. But I think overall, like, compared to some of the form he showed before, where he was very soft in all those defensive contexts, like, that's only one. That's not so bad.
No, it's backfield coverage has been massive, as it has been the last few weeks against England. But we saw with Liam Williams managed to do in terms of shutting them down. That's going to be on Hayward. And then the game plan, like, it's so much is riding on Tito Tibaldi in his boot, because if they can get England playing it in their half, forcing England to exit, that's, like, for any tier 2 side, that's the dream. Is just in the first half they're doing a lot of exiting. It's keeping the score down. It's keeping the pressure on England. It's forcing them to do more work than you have to do. And Italy do at least have the improvement around their fitness, in the sense that in the second half they're not likely to, if the game stays narrow and the scoreline is not ticking over that well for England, it's less likely that Italy will just break down and England will run in a load of tries in the second half. There isn't that fitness deficit that there once was.
For sure.
If they can maintain a picture of just holding the game and keeping England pegged in their territory, pick off a couple of scores here or there, like that's a nice picture for them. But obviously, as you say, it's more likely to see England barnstorming and just the class and skills deficit that exists between them. I mean, just in the names alone, I mean, you're talking about Owen Farrell. Yeah, they haven't got anybody like Owen Farrell.
Like Tommy Allen is a fine ball runner, but nowhere near. Like he actually kind of wants to play the game in a similar way to Farrell, but he's of several. I
don't even think he does at all. Like Farrell sees the whole picture. Tommy Allen's just a 12.
That's probably true. Yeah. Well, that's true. Yeah. But Farrell's a 12 too, man. Apparently.
No, he isn't. He's the least 12 there ever 12.
It's true.
And he has more games at 12 than Tommy Allen. What a world.
That's true. Yeah. That's how it works. Yeah, we just don't know what we're talking about with it. But but Farrell, in terms of being a threat with ball in hand, good passing game on him. Like that's kind of what I mean, like that in terms of Tommy Allen's contribution, but like Farrell's just several levels above, and that just feels like it's not just limited to Farrell. You're looking at every single position on the park, and you're going like, I don't see anywhere where Italy have the edge. Italy's back row can maybe match some of what England's back row on their day.
Bramstein can pick off a couple of lineouts.
Bramstein can pick up a couple of lineouts. That would be nice. Like, disruption would be great. If they can bag some tries. Well, this is it. And again, it's going to be my point for the whole tournament. I'm not swaying from it. Italy need to be going for tries. No 3-pointers ever at all. You're in Twickenham, for God's sake. What is going to happen with that 3-pointer? Nothing. You're just sacrificing one of the few chances you have. If you're lucky enough to get 4 chances in the game, you need to be turning all 4 of them into tries. It's your best hope of winning the game. It's also your only hope of getting anything out of the game at all.
It's almost like if they're lining up an easy 3-pointer, you'd almost think from an Italian perspective, gee, it'd be better off if you missed here, because then it's only a 23-2 and we get to keep the ball in their territory.
Exactly. So it's like, why are you doing it? It's a fallacy that exists. It seems prevailing in this part of the world, because anytime I listen to coverage from every country, they're always suggesting you go for the 3.
Some less in other countries. The Kiwi commentators are off on 3.
That's what I'm talking about in this hemisphere. In this tournament, certainly, like when I watch the domestic broadcast of any particular game, they're always recommending 3-pointers, and like for a team in Italy's position, I just can't understand the reasoning behind it.
Uruguay bagged 9 against Wales in the last World Cup, I recall. It was like a 52-9 defeat.
Yeah. So what's the point? It may as well be nil. It's all you've achieved is not getting nilled, which can be accomplished with a simple try, or 4.
But it's not that simple. They're big Welsh men. Can I not just kick over the points?
No, you should. Well, like this, it goes into your point about no matter if you're tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, you should have an attacking maul play in your locker. 5 meter line out. You should have a few plays.
That's your 2-point conversion play. Like every team needs to be very confident about scoring from that position.
Exactly. So that's why it's not as big a risk as all that. If you're kicking to the corner, so you're 5 meters out with an attacking line out, you as a team of any kind of worth your salt in any capacity, and that goes down levels. It's at club level as well.
Yeah, it's one of the very first set plays you should be working into your team.
Exactly, and you should be working it weekly. It shouldn't be anywhere far removed from your thoughts. And if it is, that's a terrible negative sign. If you're just staying narrow, milking penalty, kicking penalty, you're a losing team. Always. That's not the right way to play it. So it's just tactically, as far as Italy are concerned, I wish they would just go for it from the very, very beginning, because it's the best. Like we're saying, the tier 2 teams, traditionally whenever they come across a team like this, where matchup wise they're inferior across the park on paper, and they just are. So it's like you're accepting that going into it. Like the best way for you to get purchased, and historically the times that you do get purchased, if you're looking at Japan against South Africa and stuff, it's when they go for it unrelentingly, unapologetically, unashamedly.
To be fair, Japan and South Africa did kick some 3-pointers.
They did kick some 3-pointers. Well. That's
they
true.
They also scored some tries.
Yeah, that is it. Like they got in to win a game. I'm talking about like that's an exceptional circumstance. I'm talking about the more common picture that's painted in those games, where even if they're in it for 60 minutes, it ends up pulling away. And so for all your kicking of 3-pointers to stay vaguely close, and theoretically you're 6 points down now, so if you grab a try but you're not going for the try, and then what happens in response is that the team that are better do wake up and get out of their funk, and you can catch them cold and you can get them shocked and you can disarm them for a whole half. And England are notoriously bad at adjusting on the fly. If they are having a poor first half, it could well take them
it would probably
till
last till
half-time
half-time,
to fix it, and then they'll come out and probably score a few tries thereafter. So it's like, if you're getting a bit of purchase in the first half, go for tries. Exactly right.
Yeah.
Don't be kicking those 3-pointers because they're just a waste of your few precious opportunities.
Yeah, 100%. I'm just going here. I've written down, I think, a 40+ point.
Yeah. That being said, I don't expect Italy to get 4 tries. I expect England to get many, many tries.
Yeah, I just think they have a very good variety in their attack. Obviously, things can go wrong. It remains to be seen from our perspective. You'll probably know by the time this is uploaded what they'll go for, whether they'll rotate their squad very much, whether you'll have Tuolangi and Farrell in there, or will it be some sort of George Ford, Ben Teo nightmare?
Yeah.
Oh
my god. I don't want to look at that.
No, I suspect not. I would think that would be a potential momentum staller, especially after the last 2 weeks Italy have had.
I kind of feel like
after the loss, they've had a week off, a loss and
a week off. You'll want most of those same boys out there again to kind of angrily run in and run over some talent.
It's one of those games that's a stepping stone to the next week, and they've got Italy and then Scotland. It's a chance to play themselves into a bit of form in Twickenham. You want your guys out, 100%.
Yeah, that's true. It's putting on a show for the fans at home as well.
Yeah,
it's I think it's try times for England. That's what I'm thinking.
That's it. Good luck.
Good luck to Italy.
Be rooting for you.
I will certainly be shouting for you, but yes, with muted expectations.
All right.
Yeah.
When he went in there, he went all in on an England win.
I did.
You never know.
That's true.
The final game, we finally get to talk about Ireland against France.
Yeah.
The Irish interest. Ireland are still technically clinging on to some vague hopes of retaining the Six Nations.
Yes.
Not going to happen now. Let's be honest.
It's likely not.
It would require some sort of monumental scoreline here against France.
It would
actually require a Scottish win in Twickenham.
Or Conor O'Shea masterclass and showing me up for a mug for absolutely doubling down on that England win just then, and instead actually Italy win in Twickenham.
Coming out with a new crazy rules change.
Yeah, that'd be so fun.
Some tweak of the rules that's like, if you throw the ball like Tom Brady, you're allowed to throw it forward. England going, what? I've never heard of this.
Could be something along those lines. So mathematically Ireland pretty much out of the reckoning, particularly with the lack of points accrued last week against Italy.
Also just the look of them.
That's true too. I'm not making the argument that they deserved to win the game or win.
No, but I just in terms of what's going to happen over the next 2 weeks, it would be quite a turnaround. Tournaments take a shape, and it's not a pretty shape for Ireland. It's not
been Ireland's tournament thus far, for sure. That being said, this is the last game in the Aviva Stadium for the year, really, isn't it?
I'm pretty sure.
Or are they World Cups? The warm-ups, maybe. So, but certainly the last Six Nations one, and the French will be in town. The French sparking themselves into a little bit of confidence. Could be a false dawn. There probably are cracks that there's a thread that could be pulled to make them come unstuck. But if they hit the ground running, and if Ireland are as stuttery and sheepish as they've looked, and if they're still with that kind of very negative, doubtful body language, then there's very much potential for pouncing. The French could pounce on this game.
They need to front up early. Yeah. They need to not allow Ireland to get into their rhythm of holding the ball. Line speed's going to be huge. Their defence
I feel like it's another game for the first 20 minutes to decide how it's going, and it's going to be who's setting the pace.
Yeah.
And because these two teams play with quite a distinct and different pace, very removed from one another. So whoever's getting the better of that, which will be involved keeping ball.
I would expect if Ireland get the ball early, Ireland are going to be playing keep ball. France aren't a big turnover team.
No,
it's smashy smash.
Because they don't have
it's smashy smash. Like what you would expect. Their 7, Itoria, the second row, is not going to be targeting turnovers. Is going to be targeting Johnny Sexton.
Yeah,
and that's the play. You hit Sexton late. Ireland get a little disjointed. Ireland start kicking the ball away. Ireland start doing silly things. Sexton starts complaining to refs. Sexton goes off. Jack Carty comes on. He knocks the ball on. But you know,
you're painting an ugly picture.
But that's
for me
those are the kind of things that France are going to be looking for, and that's their game plan in defence, is they're winning the smashy smash game, for sure.
And profiting off Irish slops, if they can get some cheap turnovers from things like a 2-man hit leading to a spilled ball. That's the kind of stuff they're going for. Possibly targeting the ball in the air as the ball
they're young fit men in the sense like Itoria is, Lambie is, Lara is. The back line pretty much all are, with the exception of maybe Bastro. He's letting the young lads do a lot of the running. But they can afford to play both in offense and defense at quite a pace without just completely gassing.
Which was the problem when they were.
And there was a problem in the first game when the pack were so huge, and it's still going to be a bit of a problem for the front rows. And they'll have to use their subs well. Like Van Mahina in there is still
a problem.
Yeah, a bit ridiculous. But Lambie in there is a massive improvement.
Oh, he's a Duracell bunny.
Willemse off the bench in the second row is also they're better second rows in that country.
They're a better French second row.
Bernard Leroux, I'm not sure if he's injured or where he's at, but it's very the second row, that issue is very strange. But Lambie is a baller. So that's the kind of thing. There's going to be line speed and rush and aggression and physicality in defence, and flow and pace and offloads and chaos on offense.
Indeed.
Guys making plays and just turning Ireland's structured shape into rudderless mess. And Ireland are going to come out with a plan that they're going to hope to execute. But as we all know, with teams on a negative spiral, if a few things start to go wrong for Ireland, that the confidence it's going to seep out
very easily.
And they'll just get frustrated again, and then they'll be like, "Oh, but we planned really hard this week, and it's still not working." You know,
but we looked at so much tape.
All those hours.
But the arrow said here was the guy.
He threw such a perfect arrow. How did it not work?
I know, right?
We had a plan and a clipboard and a whiteboard.
There was a blackboard over there. No, it's true. It's definitely. It's such a good clash of styles, really. It's two
polar opposites,
diametrically opposed ways of playing.
An NFL team playing the Harlem Globetrotters in God knows what.
In golf. In golf. It's fun time. But Ireland will be looking to be methodical. I think the template for this game, from an Ireland point of view, and actually both of the templates have been written so far, and you just watch the Leinster-Toulouse 2 games, the 2 legs of that fixture that happened in the Champions Cup so far.
100%.
Because in France, when Toulouse got the running of it and set the pace, Leinster were a bit struggling. Their structures were a bit broken. They got goaded in, which is probably less likely to happen to Ireland, because Leinster have an identity of being a bit more of a flowy team anyway. So they were kind of goaded into playing a little bit faster and looser than they were, and that led to things like
that probably served Leinster okay though, in the sense that Leinster are a decidedly less in a decidedly less brittle place. They were in a very domineering place going into that game, and they were caught. But what their response was to Toulouse's sort of jouer, and when it was okay, let's jouer. Whereas Ireland's response would be probably to just be frustrated and things to go wrong again. And
you suspect so?
Everything tightening up. So
that's that is the danger, and that Toulouse team is a good benchmark for how this French team want to perform and are clearly planning to, because that's where the consistency in the selection is from. But that being said, the reverse fixture in Dublin, which is where this one's going to be held to, was a great execution and it's actually the most Ireland Leinster have looked, pretty much, as far as just going through multi-phase, not opting for the pass that was the killer pass that may have been on for the sake of another 10 phases of
tackles
attacks and you just making tackles. And it meant that every time Toulouse got the ball, which they did, there were breaking moments where they had the ball, but they were just a little slow and a little sluggish and still in a defensive mindset, because they've just been bludgeoned by a load of Irish forwards. And it's that is the picture that Ireland are wanting to present them to. And it will, if it's the first 20 minutes that Ireland can establish that, it'll sap a lot of this French energy, I think, because they'll be coming in
brittle enough itself.
Flying. Yeah, well, obviously, but they'll be coming in absolutely high as kites off that last performance, and they should, because it was so much more optimism, and the fact that we finally got some consistency in selection and he's picked the same team.
I'm so positive about all of that. I hope that if it goes wrong this week, he sticks with it, and I also hope that Camille Lopez isn't eternally scapegoated for what was going on before, because he's a very good player and a better option than Bellew off the bench to cover Ntamak. That's like just a little adjustment, but like that said, improvements across the board for France. You're right. From Ireland's perspective, tightening it up, winning those collisions is going to be huge, and you have to think like that's what their bread and butter was. They haven't been able to do it. They weren't able to do it against Italy in terms of winning those tight collisions and just generating that go forward. They struggled to do it against Italy. You think a couple of offloads to break it up, but that's just not the way they do things. And then they obviously weren't able to do it particularly well against England at all. They had some purchase against Scotland, but for the most part it hasn't been that effective for them. It was mighty effective against Toulouse for Leinster with a lot of the same guys. France don't have much turnover hustle in them. That's not really the way they do. They also have a couple of guys who can get soft in the contact. I mean, even Pick'em-all is good for a couple of hits, but then he will soften
There's
up.
a period in the game where he gets soft.
And that's the dream for Ireland, is to almost early doors. Like, you hate to see it, because one of the pictures that you want to see Ireland doing long term is expanding their game and getting their centres into it more and moving the point of attack. But perhaps early doors against this French team, you want to actually keep Sexton out of the game, because their whole early defensive mindset is probably going to be based around hitting Sexton, especially with no Carberry. You're going to be thinking, gee, let's get this guy out of the game and we'll have some new kid come on. That'd be interesting.
That's definitely their goal for sure. But playing off 9 and keeping it tight then.
Onus on Conor Murray to be a little quicker, a little sharper.
Definitely. He's apparently still nursing an injury, which we've commented on. So he never got the surgery on the shoulder. Losing some muscle mass there. That's a problem. He should have got surgery.
They still may, or I'm not even sure what the whole picture is on that. I wish I'd read more about it, but it's notwithstanding his form looks off, and I have heard a few people say that he doesn't look right at the moment, which is concerning. Cooney hasn't got any love from Smith. I imagine Marmion's going to come straight in there on the bench.
Marmion had a good game for Connacht as well back, and actually looked very, very quick.
He's a fine player, and Joe trusts him, so I suspect he'll be in. And that's a good option, at least off the bench.
Well, maybe if he trusts him a bit more, he'll be more inclined to use the option, because what we've seen for the first couple of weeks, which I will be very annoyed if we see again, because there's just no point, convincing me that depth is working when you can't change things for the better with your bench. Because when you have a 9 playing as poorly as Connor has been, which is like a shame to play, and like, it's poor by his standards. Like, it's not like it's been terrible performances really, but just that little bit off, and in the game plan that leans so heavily on what he does really well, that's enough to upset have a chain reaction that affects the whole team. We saw in November what how far Marmion's come and how far we've come in that position in the absence of Conor Murray. In the mould and the image and example of Conor Murray, the other 9s have improved, the halfbacks there. So it's just like
beat the All Blacks
without Conor Murray at 9. So it's, if he's playing that badly, we need to remove him from the game. And it's like, you can't be worried about minutes or confidence really, because it's sometimes in Test rugby a change needs to be made. And not trusting your benchmen to, like we were saying, highlighting before, if you have what is potentially an nursing an injury, throwing in sloppy passes, kicking game has been off. If he's on the pitch still doing that, like no part of his game is fully going right, their next best guy is a better option then at that point. The exits are a curious one as well. I suspect they'll just be box kicking.
It's crazy to think after 3 unsuccessful weeks, are we going to see any changes in terms of big picture, what Ireland are going to bring going forward into the World Cup? We all know the positives of what Ireland can bring from last year, how it can be successful, and we know how it can't be in those other games. But like, you would like to see a bit of a mix-up on the exit. You'd like to see Gary Ringrose in at first receiver a little bit, maybe Sexton in behind. You'd like to see a lot more.
I can't understand
work for Gary Ringrose.
Like when in the first game, like obviously they played badly against England across the board in a few different regards. But what I really couldn't understand was the innovation that had Sexton to the outside, which I was okay with. We were trying to reach the edge of the defence.
Worked a couple of times.
But why was Bundy the man? who's doing that, and Ringrose just running a shadow line outside between the two boys and not getting anywhere near the ball. Yeah. That makes no sense.
They don't make him do enough work on offense. Yeah. The one game that they did was Scotland last year, which is probably when Ireland's attack looked at its most crisp and sharp.
Yeah.
They actually had limited enough opportunities. The pack didn't play that well, but when they did get them, they used them.
Executed.
And that was the difference on the day between the two sides.
Yeah.
So you would love to see, if Ringrose is fit and available, which I believe he is, him to get a lot more work on offense.
Yeah, just get his hands on the ball.
On defense as well.
Because he is someone to test those French centres as well, who are quite big and bludgeoning, but also a little bit flat-footed. And like Ringrose's channel, there should be purchase there. The link between Bastro and the outside. You don't see a huge amount
from Fiku or Bastro of like really positive tackles and like massive collisions and great reads. Yeah. It's all very quite.
It's quite a difference. Bastro in defence, he's a good poach man. When he's in poach position, he's immovable object. But yeah, he doesn't make that many crushing hits off the ball. He makes them on the ball. When he ball carries, he does damage, but he doesn't seem to throw his body in with the same kind of. Maybe, and to be honest now, that's probably because
he doesn't put himself in that position that often.
It's tougher for him. He's a bigger guy covering a channel that really I'm thinking Gary Ringrose looks more like just body type and all. Like he's the kind of wiry kind of guy who can cover a lot of ground that you kind of want at 13. Yeah, I think. Ideally, like Bastro is an anomaly in this world at that, and I still question the wisdom of it overall. I still think,
exactly. If you look at the guy's career, it's hard to argue. I don't think that he may have been a more successful number 8 and perhaps a better player overall if he'd been playing in that position. He's just a baller who's probably more like a number 8 than anything else. Yeah, who's been put in the centre and still makes some great plays, but has some
every
negative
now
plays
and then he has some negative contributions too, and he can get tired because he's defending a very difficult channel.
It's a very tough thing if you're a big guy, or if you're not as it's quick. Speed is so huge in that channel. Yeah, just the ground you have to cover is the difference is night and day. Yeah, between just tackling around the fringes and covering that area. That said, Ireland probably won't. The potential is there, but I don't know if Ireland will exploit it.
Well, we were calling for it in week 1 against England's unproven centre partnership. We didn't get it. We did get that innovation to try and get Sexton wider to try and get
the opening 2 weeks the attack was all about giving Stockdale good matchups, which kind of worked. He had a couple of one-on-ones with Noel, but he almost got away a couple of times, but Noel managed to get him.
Noel's combative in that area.
Yeah. He beat guys once or twice, but never. He was usually shut down pretty quick in the first half. But that was a decent little variation of just. I like the mindset of just getting Stockdale into space, which is a huge part of what Ireland do, and you'll likely see it on the weekend. Yeah. But at the same time, there's other guys and there's other spaces on the pitch to be attacked.
Yeah. And if you're so focused on getting into Stockdale, then the defence that are looking, if you're presenting that picture all the time, all tournament long, surely they're going to be expecting that. So maybe it's time for Ringrose or Aki to deceptively take it through the middle. Yeah, I feel like there's definitely purchase there if we are to attack that way. I actually suspect the centres may be playing off 9 more often and coming in out away from that channel. It'll be short balls off 9 that will involve Murray flicking wider passes to try and carry narrow over the gain line. There could be some success there as well. It just rhythm wise we need to establish it, and that's been very much lacking from Ireland's game. It's not even tempo. They just don't have any rhythm or flow about what they're doing at all, and that is coming in the form of a few passes to the back shoulder in a run of sets. Every now and then they're disrupting what they're trying to do with inaccurate play, really. Yeah. And just
I think Tyke Byrne, who is sort of tipped to start this week, him and James Ryan could be a very good partnership.
I think that's a really potentially very potent partnership, because they both have engines on them.
He has a reputation as more of a defensive man with big steals, but actually he's a very effective carrier of a ball and an offloader of the ball. Yeah. Which will put 2 of them in the pack in himself and Ty Furlong. The 2 Tigers might be actually proper offloads.
And actually James Ryan, to be honest, once he gets through,
I've not really seen him offload that much, to be honest with you. Occasionally if he's just left standing and there's someone running off him, but for the most part he's a head down, go forward kind of guy. There's nothing wrong with that, especially the way he does it, but you need a bit.
Well, it's a good balance to that, because he does really well in the in the tight with the second movement. Like he's he's
Yes.
deceptively physical kind of blocko man that he is. But Ty Burton's actually not that physical as a second row
Picks
in terms
good
of
lines,
presence.
though.
Picks very good lines,
Yeah.
similar to like he reminds me actually of Josh van der Fleer and the way he carries the ball.
Yeah.
Whereas like he's not that big, but he does time it just right and goes bang smack between the two boys and finds a bit of headway that way. And it's a wise way. It's a wise course. It's a sign of a better rugby player than someone who's actually beelining for the jersey first to try and perk his way over a guy, because that's not a sustainable career option either. Because those guys tend to break down at 26 because they just can't do it forever.
Exactly. Yeah, and Ty Burton does have although I was going to say he's the look of a guy who lost, but he does get injured all the time.
It's true.
Some guys just like that.
Well,
but,
this is the argument that maybe he's a back row playing in second row, which is.
Oh, sorry, that's me. Maybe, but I don't hate him as a second row. He's a good line out man. He's good. That's true. I got no beef. Sometimes the back row and the second row is a good thing. Yeah, a bit more pace.
It depends how it'd be interesting to see how the scrum goes.
I'd love to see
that engine room is an untested one, because I'm pretty sure Quinn Rue's favour being in favour in the team, in the squad, comes down to a lot of the work he does at scrum time, really, because he's very, very powerful.
It's true. He's a functional man, and a Mick Carney of a thing. No, listen, I got no beef with Quinn Rue, but the scrum, I think it'll be strong enough. You might have CJ at the back pushing again. I think it's one of the thing about the Irish scrum at the moment is they're very good at just retaining their own ball, but they don't really do anything with it. No,
they sometimes win penalties off your scrum.
Rarely.
Sometimes
the stats don't that like. I think there was a stat I was watching. I think it was Off the Ball, one of their podcasts of the weekend. And that they were making the point, someone on there was making the point that stats wise Ireland have one of the highest percentage rates of ball retention at the scrum, but actually one of the lowest in terms of generating turnovers from scrums, and that's including penalties and everything else. We had about maybe 2% or something. And the All Blacks, by contrast, by no means a scrummaging, brilliantly. Nobody's brilliant scrummaging team, but they have like 11% of the scrums that go against them they actually manage to turn over.
There you go.
With a penalty or some other decision.
Well, it feels like we have the tools to do that with the front row that we have, with the front rows that we have.
Yeah, with the line out struggling as it is. I would love to see,
and the French prioritising scrums as much as they do, particularly like against France, it would be a great psychological blow to be able to land early on if you're getting penalties at scrum time.
And it's actually one of the pictures that works well for us against Toulouse. Yeah, a couple of good positive scrums, and to my mind, Cian Healy as a technical scrummager, there's few better than him in the world. He has lost a little bit of muscle in recent years. It's come to the detriment perhaps of his elite scrummaging. But maybe to the benefit of the rest of his game. He's lost a couple of kilos, and he's not suffering from the ankle issues that he had been suffering, that I'm pretty sure from just carrying that extra weight. He had recurring problems with that because he's still trying to be the nimble ball running guy that he was, but he was actually carrying too much weight to do it, and it was like But in recent times it's just been like Tadhg Furlong as well as a great example. In the Tunuku Wafe game against the All Blacks, he really did get him. But they don't do it enough. They don't actually go out to attack a scrum. They just use it as a platform. And with the other set piece waning as much as it is, like it's almost a snobby thing that you think of it as like a tier 2 move. We're Brazil or we're Georgia. We're just going to identify around this and use it as a penalty generator. But it can be hugely effective.
What annoys me is that we're actually like our strike plays off scrums tend not to be as effective as our line out ones for some reason.
That's because it's 5-10 metres between the back lines as opposed to 20. There's less you can do off scrums unless you're in like that.
I don't know. You can do a lot with scrums, midfield scrums, but we definitely don't keep it and drive when we have the edge a lot of the time. We do kind of flick it out and get into our process.
But we also don't go for the drive enough. I mean, there's a few times that I've seen Cian Healy have very positive body position on a tight head, and that just extra niggle doesn't come. They feel set and they feel comfortable, and then they just sort of hold the push and make sure that they keep the ball. Which is Demba Bamba's
it's proper scrummaging. But,
it is, but Demba Bamba's a big guy. Like he's very strong. He's probably stronger than Cian Healy, but he scrums very high. He's very high. If you watch him, he's like he gets away with it, but he's like he looks like a young tight head, like young Tadhg Furlong was getting a lot wrong in the scrum, and then he sort of fixed it over time. But and he never truly got punished for it, except for one or two games.
In the 14, I can't remember. Yeah, I do recall a few instances definitely
where he was just a big guy,
technique guy.
Yeah, exactly.
Got shown up for not doing it right.
And that's the case with Demba Bamba, and I just think Cian Healy, he has
Cian Healy has a good habit of schooling boys, props that he's never come up against before. He has a good habit of lining them up and schooling them on the art of scrimmaging.
He is great. Like the Carl Heyman game, he has a great list of guys that he's ticked off, that he's beaten out the gate at scrum time.
Looking at that Toulouse game again, that oh god, what name escapes me.
Oh my god, was it, what's your man's name? Charlie Femuina.
Charlie Femuina, thank you.
Gee whiz.
What a game he had in
Dublin. That was Cian Healy.
Cian Healy monster.
There was a couple of other plays in the loose.
He got a bang in the loose that was exacerbated thoroughly by one or two Cian Healy scrums, and then he was off because after whatever was 30 odd minutes or
and
something.
That was a losing picture for Toulouse.
Definitely.
And it would be if he could do something similar to Demba Bamba. Who's another big guy, ball busting, likes to
be throwing himself around in the loose as well as in the scrum. But if he can get that purchase, and I've seen Cian Healy have some malice in his scrummaging before, but again, probably more often in Leinster colours than
100%
in
right,
Ireland,
especially in recent years. They don't do enough off the scrum. They have arguably the most naturally talented scrummaging props in Tier 1. I would go as far to say. In fact, they do. Like Mako's manufactured a good technique, but he never quite had it originally. The Welsh props are functional. The same could be said for the All Blacks. Outside of maybe Beastem Tawira, outside of those guys, in the Springboks, you'd say probably the most natural scrummaging forwards, and they don't do enough with it. Especially when their lineouts malfunctioning, it would be a great penalty generator for them if they could
only stick to it and try and triumph that way. Yeah, it's true. That's an interesting point that I hadn't realised about the lack of turnovers. But then when I think about it, because it's for Leinster, it's such a constant generator of go forward and penalties, and it's just very often they get into full on attack mode and destroy the scrum, and it's you'd like to see a bit more of that. Particularly, as I said before, against this French team, who are going to be looking for that to be working for them, and as soon as it's not, you want to be deflating their confidence slowly but surely, but methodically, piece by piece, ticking off the aspects of the game, and it's very very Schmidt like. It's very micro oriented kind of game plan to try and focus on just removing all of their assets slowly but surely, and surely a part of that is scrum dominance. Would be a lovely feather in the cap at that point as well. And
conversely, if Demba Bamba's manages to show up Healy or the other side, Poirot gets the nudge on Tig, that's a very positive picture for France.
Indeed, and it lets them grow and settle into the game.
With Itoria and Laurie and Picabole in the back row, they have a very big pack with a very big, the weight of them is massive. Yeah. But I don't think they scrummage all that well. So I think it's an area that Ireland should be looking to profit from. Yeah. That said, is there anything more on that Ireland game? What do you think is going to happen?
I am thinking that Ireland are going to win it.
I wish I knew. I wish I could speak on any confidence.
I'm thinking, but I can see the picture. I can see multiple pictures that can go wrong. Like we're illustrating, like there are winning conditions for both, and they're so disparate. And like it's a lovely game. It's always a lovely game. Ireland France. It really it's always a different game as well, which is hilarious. And just even in years gone by, when one side seems better than the other, we always make tough work of France. Even in years that they're dreadful against everyone, and it really should be put. We never. We still have historical precedent for thinking that rightly that France are class. And we have that little fear and respect that leads to possibly sometimes when we're probably a bit more superior playing them back into the game, but also kind of raising our game when France are in a position that they're good. It kind of brings the best out of Ireland as well, because the challenge of things like going over to France, that's what happened last year. You produced some great moments and stuff. So I predict a pretty tight affair, that Ireland are going to edge away from them, keeping them at arm's length. I
hope so. I don't know. Tournaments take shapes, and it can be very difficult to shake what Ireland have got at the moment, which is like they just look completely lacking in confidence and faith in one another and faith in themselves. Everything's becoming tight and slow, and you'd look at it to maybe Gary Ringrose to shake things up as a man coming back. I'd really love to see Jordan Armour get the nod over Keith Earls and maybe get a bit of pace and excitement and youth in there. But we haven't seen that so far, which is just another negative story this week in terms of just Sean Cronin being axed from the team,
axed
from the squad, after starting his first ever Six Nations game. It's just this great player who's a great, he's been a great servant to Leinster, and I think we made the point last week that a part of coaching should involve actually getting the best out of people and bigging people up. It's something that New Zealand are great for. You put on the All Blacks jersey and your brothers and people are there for you, and you actually play above yourself. And then Sean Cronin for years now, and part of that's going to be personal responsibility on him, but for years now he hasn't delivered an Ireland jersey what he's been delivering in a Leinster jersey. But definitely a part of that has to go to the coaches, and you have to point, and they seem to just treat him with the stick. They discipline him, they drop him. He's the first man to get blamed. It's factually wrong to suggest that he was at fault for a lot of those lineouts. I mean, especially those ones to the back that he was getting critiqued for overthrows. I think there was maybe one overthrow, and the other two,
timing issue.
And the timing issue, first of all, the lineout caller is Quinn Rue, and then the timing issue, the hooker throws the ball before the guy at the back jumps, because the ball is going to take so long to get them. So you're actually waiting for the ball, and then you're jumping to time it such that you're in the air where the ball is. And twice in that game, you were the receiving jumper was on his way down when the ball went over him, which is just terrible from the jumpers. And none of those guys are dropped. And Cronin is again a potentially very good player whose confidence just seems to be being chipped away at by this coaching ticket. And it's just, to me, I'm just seeing a lot of negatives in where Ireland's headspace is at, and I can foresee, hopefully I'm wrong, but I can foresee
consequences. Like a home defeat to France.
Absolutely. I can't really bring myself to call it, but I guess I kind of am. I have a sneaking suspicion that things could go wrong this week, and I don't rate our ability to deal with it right now if it does go wrong. Hopefully it won't. It'll go right. You'll get that picture of that travelling France who are just not quite there, and then it's all easy going, and you can win your collisions and get a bit of confidence, which would be ideal.
Yes, that seems what they're shorn of for sure.
But it's if France front up and come to play a game like Toulouse did, I think it could be a very dangerous game for Ireland, and I think if they do lose it, they're smart guys, and they will have time to fix it before the World Cup, but it will be a challenge for sure. Things will need to be fixed, and
there will be all kinds of crazy nonsense going on in the media and all kinds
of... Just what concerns me is that it's been 3 really negative weeks, and we're just stepping back and analysing the game and thinking about what Joe's going to do, and it's basically the same thing again. It's the same game plan every week, and it's going to be again basically a couple of variations here and there, but basically they're going to go out and do the same thing that they always do and hope that it works, which it didn't even against Italy, so I don't know.
It's a point. It's a scary point. Here's hoping France don't turn up.
I guess that's our perspective.
Or here's hoping the real Ireland please stand up. Because when they're on, they're still very on, and like when Sexton's pulling the strings and making those subtle variations, and with Ringrose in there, a bit more flexibility, a bit more creativity, there's still scope for this team to improve, and it's like they're not
done and dusted, but they need to vary it up. That's it. We've rambled on about it far too much.
So yes, we'll park it there and say, come on, Ireland.
Come on, please settle my nerves.
It's definitely a nervy one.
Listen, the next thing I wanted to talk about, which was, I'm glad we didn't shoot the podcast yesterday, which would have been Tuesday.
Yes, it would have been a bit of egg on face, because we would have been...
It was all the news yesterday was breaking. I mean, if you follow Wales online, they had literally updates by the half hour, new articles
all of this going down.
What on earth was going on with their Welsh rugby.
Scarlets merging with Ospreys.
Can
you think of a more stupid idea than that?
Well, it's a curious one. There's a load of different... The general thought seemed to be yesterday, as I was sort of keeping pace with it, that they wanted, they wanted to expand into the north of the country. Which they wanted a franchise up there. They felt that there was money to be made and punters to be got, and that was a good idea to have a franchise up there. And then conversely, the Ospreys are apparently struggling financially. The word is from Scarlets that they had actually approached both Scarlets. The Ospreys had approached Scarlets and Cardiff to float a potential merger, but just to look into it, they were saying. And then they, obviously the director stepped down in fury when the proposal did come out and was discussed. But it's a curious one. It's an indication that, I mean, the only indication you really need is to look at the Pro 14 table, that the Welsh regions have big problems, man. Big problems. And it's
well, like their players only ever play well in the Wales jersey these days. And some players are just waiting to get into Warren Camp and love that.
Put the players on it. Like,
I'm not putting the players on it. And in fact, Ospreys are made up. See, this is it. Like the juxtaposition between it's such a funny thing when you look at rugby as professional rugby, that era, and you look at two countries of similar size like Wales and Ireland, who have similar kind of long-standing traditions of playing rugby, near 100 years of history already in the bag before we turn professional. One of them makes the right call to when we're switching to professionalism, to make it centrally contracted, divided up into 4 provinces, which it's fortuitous that Ireland does actually have provinces. There are 4 provinces,
it's definitely
which means
much
you
more
buy
fluid
into them. Whereas with what Wales failed to get on the central contract, they're there now retroactively, but didn't initially do that. Set up really did divide a lot of people in doing what they did with the Meath Swansea Ospreys in the first place.
The Newport Gwent
Dragons and Border Reavers back in the day.
Border Reavers,
remember
the
them?
Scottish team.
Oh, they're Scottish, were they?
Yeah, they were.
Yeah,
it was always Cardiff Scarlets.
Yeah. But yeah, like things like Pontypridd, great traditional club, not represented in this new format.
Yeah, and that's
you have a lot of embittered fans who
listen, Gary Owen weren't represented in Ireland, and there's a lot of it has to come down to the Welsh rugby fan, the average Welsh rugby fan. There hasn't been a lot of buy-in from them, and it's a problem in the sense that, like, I remember I read a comment in Wales Online that was like, if one of those, if even a quarter of those daffodil wearing, fans who show up every week to sing the national anthem for Wales and the Six Nations would actually support their regions, it would massively help them financially and everything else. And they have a money problem at the moment. They're exploring ways to solve it. They can't. To my mind, one of the proposals that was put up was like, if you're going to scrap a franchise or have another franchise incorporate one, you'd have to think it'd be the Dragons. Yeah, but they have.
After all of this year, where with Jackman trying his best to put a system that would be best for that club, where it's trying to utilise the limited resources that they do have, being the locality and the players, and trying to get that work, and now he's gone.
There's a bit of
it feels like there's no floating that franchise. It seems like they're perpetually going to be that far below the caliber of the other teams in the league, so they're going to be shipping a load of tries.
Welsh rugby itself, I think, I'm not actually sure on the specifics of this. I think they might fully own the Dragons, where they don't the other sides, and they've been obviously putting a lot of faith in the Dragons. They've been getting Hibbert in there and getting Moriarty in there and getting Halmanos in there, and trying to really pump some test quality into that side.
Yeah.
There was a leaked story that was reported by Wales Online that an unnamed Welsh player was aggressively messaging amidst all this, hysteria. Well, no, it was someone presumably from Ospreys or Scarlets was aggressively messaging some Welsh rugby bigwig, asking him repeatedly, who owns the Dragons? What's wrong with the Dragons? And keep was pulling at that thread. To my mind, I actually think that the Ospreys are a big problem, in the sense that the Dragons, they're a problem in themselves. They're a very small club, very small little community. As much as you try and big them up and do what Bernard Jackman did and get the youth in, it's all from a very small pool. Yeah, and that's always going to, when you're competing with sides like Leinster, that's just always going to be very tough for them. Yeah, Ospreys have been more competitive, but the whole
ultimately losing
the whole Swansea thing it would drive you berserk. Yeah. Because as someone who watches the soccer, you show up and watch Swansea football play in, I think they're in where are they now? The Division 2, whatever, the Championship.
Yeah.
But they if you see a Swansea City match, that Liberty Stadium is full. Yeah. And the Ospreys can't even fill it by a quarter, not even close, to be honest. They get pathetic attendances in there. There's not, I know there are Ospreys fans who are annoyed about this, but there hasn't been a load of buy-in. They have this lease that they're paying on this Liberty Stadium that is crippling.
Absolutely.
And they're just not, it's not working for them. I think the natural thing to do if you want a northern franchise, and I think they do need to shake things up, and I think expanding into the north isn't a bad idea.
It's a good idea. Yeah.
I like the idea of just moving the franchise.
Yeah.
There's sporting precedent for
like getting rid of or otherwise messing with the Scarlets, who are the one club in that whole setup that actually do have an identity that I love, that are very associated with how traditionally Wales have played the game for decades plus, as well as having a storied history. They've beaten the All Blacks, same as Munster before. Like there's all kinds of history to the Scarlets that does not need to be messed with for the sake of the Ospreys. No.
You have some big Western conglomerate, the Scarsprays, or the Osclots, and
the Ocelots.
The Ocelots. Like that
the
would
Western
be,
farce was
the Western farce was a good comment I read. Like that would be a disaster to rip off the Scarlets like that. Clonethley is a small area, but there should be a little more buy-in from Welsh supporters outside Clonethley to what the Scarlets is in West Wales. Because it's a class club and something they should be very proud of. But there's sporting precedent. Like if you look, not all of it is clean, but if you look at the NFL, you do see franchises move from time to time tactically, usually to suit their own ends rather than anything else. But this is partly to suit Osprey's own ends, because to my mind, I don't see how you can say that the Swansea thing is working. Because they just don't get attendances. They're one of probably, are they the most successful of the Welsh side?
They won the league.
They won the Pro 14 I think twice. Beat us in the final in both.
They've got to quarterfinals.
They've never quite done it.
They've never got further than a quarterfinal.
Where Cardiff and Scarlets most certainly have. But they're like, they've got silverware. They had Jerry Collins and Tommy Bowe and the whole Welsh team as their team for a couple of years,
and that was some team.
And they've given the people of Swansea and Greater Neath, I guess, every opportunity to buy in and really get behind them, I think, on the pitch. And they've just never quite done it. And I think taking that franchise as is and back off with the Liberty Stadium to the north of Wales. That would be, I think that would be
progress. It sounds like a better solution.
You would certainly maintain more fans than if it was just engulfed by the Scarlets. Like, they don't like each other, Ospreys and the Scarlets. Obviously, some people who are local, who like the season ticket holders for the Ospreys, would be gutted.
They would be,
but there are so few of them.
It's true. Seemingly, they're never there. So,
exactly. But that said, you would maintain some fans of the franchise.
But like Wales isn't like that huge that you couldn't like drive from Swansea to North Wales.
It's definitely a bigger ask.
Definitely a bigger ask than
if we had to go down to or if we had to go up to Derry to watch Leinster play. I don't know how we'd feel about it.
I don't know how anyone would feel about that, to be honest. That's more contentious than any of that. The Ospreys, you're right. Like it is just unpleasant to look at the Liberty Stadium in such an empty, cavernous kind of setup.
And they're definitely losing money.
They must be hemorrhaging money at this point, with that kind of being the crack, and with the lease notwithstanding and all this. But so to try and merge those two teams seems to make less sense than simply keeping the franchise.
Keeping the four teams and moving one of them to the north, and then one that can move is the Ospreys. And then the problem then is that you have, I guess, the whole of Scarlets representing the whole of West Wales, where there's a lot of people in West Wales who don't like the Scarlets. It's a whole big thing. The rugby culture over there is so... They need... it's got to be... Like, they have the grassroots, but they don't have the grassroots supports for the regions. I'd love to, by the way, just get some Welsh commenters in here who understand it all a little bit more.
Yeah, we're certainly, we're on the outside looking in, so it's all we can kind of make head nor tail of. But there's definitely just similarities and differences that are interesting to compare and contrast when it comes to Irish rugby and Welsh rugby. Because one of the things that is there is, like you're saying, the grassroots support for the game. And Wales have always played rugby and are a traditional powerhouse in it. And yet
the part that
it just doesn't filter up.
The part that the teams, the actual institutions, like Leinster Rugby, if you're going to school in anywhere in Leinster and you're playing rugby, if it's in Wicklow or Clongowes or in Meath or wherever it is, any of the counties of Leinster, Leinster Rugby is, if you're a good player, pretty early involved in your life. It's investing in your grassroots. It's giving you opportunities maybe when you're very young to play in the RDS. And I don't know how much of that goes on, because you don't have a lot of grassroots buy-in from folks, rugby people, to the regions. And it's just, I don't know how invested the regions are or can be in the grassroots rugby that's going on there. Or are people just playing for their local clubs and to hell with the Ospreys or to hell with the Dragons or whatever it is.
Scarlets, anybody but Scarlets kind of guys from down the street.
And there's definitely that. I definitely feel like there's a sense of that, and I feel like there's people in West Wales who would be displeased at the notion that Scarlets represents all of them.
Yeah.
But they're definitely, you know,
I don't know, they're the best option there. They're my favourite club of all of those clubs that we've been mentioning.
Exactly. Yeah. It's all a bit up in the air. Like it's hard. It's a much more complicated one to fix than you would think, because there isn't, like, there's very natural divisions in Ireland in the sense that the Leinster identity exists even without Leinster, as does Connacht, as does Munster, as does Ulster.
Indeed, yes, there were kings of Leinster in years gone by. Are they proud
North Welshmen versus, or is it more like the town down the road I really can't stand?
Yeah, it could be a little bit more like the latter. But one thing that's definitely not helpful is when the national side are going for a Grand Slam and have just been
the merge, by the way, isn't going through.
It's not.
I mentioned, I assume you guys know this at this stage. Like, it was all proposed, it was all come up, it all looked like it was going to happen. Osprey's director left. Sorry to cut you off there, but like that's like it's announced today basically that all of that is now not happening, and the general plan is to continue as is, you know, off the cliff.
Yes. Lemmings. Go. So what I was saying is, like, what's not conducive to improving any of this situation is to come up with an outlandish, ridiculous idea like merging the Ospreys and the Scarlets,
which was allegedly floated first by the Ospreys, who are in financial strain, and then was rolled with by the Welsh Rugby.
But that leaking into the news cycle and dominating it for this week now in prep for their game in Edinburgh, which is a banana skin of a game anyway, is like, none of this is good. Yeah, none of this is good for Welsh Rugby.
Awful. Right in the middle of a Grand Slam run. And the other thing is, it's not just the news cycle. Like, it was news to a lot of the players.
Yeah.
That this was going down. Yeah. And
that's distraction breeds.
Like, you guys need to know if they're going to be able to be, where they're going to be working, or are they going to be working?
Do I need to move?
There's a couple of contracts. Alan Wynne-Jones, I think Nicky Smith, a couple of others, Ospreys, that are unsigned ahead of next year. That, you know, you, amidst all this craziness, you'd be sorely tempted by big French money coming your way if you're a Welsh international.
That's true. Yeah. How could you not?
It's all that's like that little area.
Do Wales, are they stringent on a centrally contracted to play for the national team, or do they pick from outside? Because I know they pick.
No, they pick from outside.
Okay,
they pick from outside. There's no rule there.
Right. Okay.
I don't think there's anybody who's been thoroughly cut off. Josh Adams doesn't play he plays in the Premiership.
He does, that's right, actually. Yeah, no, you're right. Yeah. Priestland came into my head there randomly as another option for 10, but he's not playing well enough, and he's playing in Bath.
And he was injured for much of the year.
He's
come back, and he actually is one of the more admirable Bath men amidst all the Bath crises.
Yes, indeed. I was just musing on that. So you definitely, with that being the case, you'd definitely be tempted of abandoning ship.
Well, many have over the years. It's a complicated one and tough to fix. I would love to hear the input if there's any of you.
If anyone of you have any takes on it, because we're just musing with it. I don't know what the solution is.
I don't have one.
Moving the franchise may make sense if that's it's probably like a solution needs to be found for the Swansea thing, and it's just
there's no proposal that's not without its negatives. But I think it makes a lot more sense to have the Ospreys be a northern franchise, to have each, large region in the country. Each quadrant. You have 4 teams.
We have 4 quadrants.
Each quadrant of Wales to be represented.
It's not a very passionate word. This quadrant, it doesn't inspire anything.
Get behind your quadrant.
Come on, for fuck's sake, the quadrant needs you.
Indeed, but it probably makes more sense. Certainly, the ongoing situation of the Ospreys playing from Swansea is just annoying to look at. It's not like you often hear stuff like,
not that enticing in a way fixture either.
You see Scarlets, and the limits of Scarlets are just like Llanelli is not that large a place.
No.
And actually, for the game against La Rochelle, everyone and their mother came to that game.
And Parky Scarlets has never looked better, and it's like for that reason and more, the Scarlets stay, and they must stay.
And exactly that, like they don't show up every week, and there's limitations to that just with the size of the place.
It's to be expected.
But, the Ospreys' attendances are pretty steadfast. Like I don't know what it would take to get them out.
Yeah.
Because we've seen, Pro 14 knockout stages. I'm not sure if they've ever hosted a Champions Cup knockout stage, but big Champions Cup games, and it's always the same small crowd.
Yeah.
You tune in the next day to watch Swansea play Peterborough in the second round of the FA Cup, and it's full.
Yeah.
Come on.
I didn't know this stadium had enough people in the Environs to kind of just fill all those seats. Yeah, no, it's disappointing on myriad different levels. So, yeah, maybe moving them out of there is the only kind of head-scratching thing we can get close to a solution, but it's not really one yet at all. But it's good to hear that rather reckless plan is not going ahead. That's the positive news.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. And then other news.
In other news, we mentioned this at the top of the show, but there was obviously a massive story last week with huge player pushback. Was this initially leaked World League format? Now, we'd heard musings on this World League from earlier in the year, which I always was positive,
reasonably positive
in my response to it. But what the leaked format was this 12-team league that would expand the Rugby Championship to 6 teams and have 6 teams up north. Include Japan and bizarrely and yet not so bizarrely the USA in as just the money, and then lock that up for 12 years and we'll reassess then. And it would have been like, I mean, there's loads you could say about it, and there's loads that was said about it.
It's hard to add anything else from our little
I mean, it's all like terrible to Pacific Islands, terrible to Georgia. It doesn't make
terrible to the players who have to play all those excess games.
That was the crux of the point from those guys as well. In terms of the league format, a lot of people weren't really sure how it would work. There was talk of 5 consecutive games in November. There was talk of diminishing value for the World Cup, which I do think is largely not true anyway. But that whole argument of they definitely can, like, we'll get into the minutiae of because I think the proposed solution definitely does have that air to it. There's definitely been a lot of valid critique, and that critique is probably less valid than the others. Then there was obviously the tier 2 thing, which is a disaster, and then the point about the USA, like, all of this seemingly is a cash grab for floundering Sansar nations. They really want to get the USA on board with Sansar. I can't remember your man's name, but the owner of the Pro 14 has other ideas about roping them into Europe. But they have the Kiwis and the Australasians are all tugging at them from the Hawaii end, and we're tugging at them from New York, and trying to see if we can get them just
pull some money in there.
I like, if you included the US in the Rugby Championship, like even Japan aren't close to ready like for that. It's such a tough championship. It's the toughest competition in World Rugby. It would be beyond pointless to put America in. I mean, you'd get a big crowd if they had it like in Soldier Field for the All Blacks coming over, and you could bill it out and you could sell your tickets. But 3 years in and 3 70-point hammerings in a row, it would start to get a bit stale, and interest would dwindle, and you just because they're not actually competitive matches.
No one likes watching blowouts, and like anyone who's a sports fan, you can watch any game, and watching a blowout is boring for the most part. Even if you're seeing some techers, it's like there's nothing at stake, there's no drama, which is what you want. So the real way to get the USA involved is to give them an opportunity to play some consequential games against teams of a similar caliber. Have that happen with a bit more regularity, maybe some silverware at the back of it. But like, it doesn't have, like, you don't have to be throwing them in against these big marquee teams for these big marquee names just for gimmickry and nothing else. Like,
the investment that they're hoping that would come out of the viewing figures, that they, like all of that they were hoping from that big American money and that big American market, like it would, like if they were to go with that proposal, it would all blow up in their face and fall through on them, and it would be a disaster if that's how it panned out. That said, mercifully enough, like, this would have been the conversation would have been having last week in its fullest extent, but that is not the proposed solution from World Rugby, at least now. After all,
it's amended anyway.
So all much ado about nothing in the end. That it was never. As soon as I heard it, like, I knew a lot of people who were instantly super outraged, and I was like, I agree with all that, but that's just never going to happen. And then it was solidified.
Even if it gets to that, there's going to be voted down.
It was solidified by the responses from loads of players with loads of coming at it from loads of different angles and pointing out all the negatives that were attached with it. What they have proposed today, they came out and announced a new plan for a league. It's a lot better than what we had read from last week. It's a lot better.
Yeah.
There's 3 divisions.
Mm-hmm.
I like that. I like going deep. I think they have 12 in Division 1, they have 12 in Division 2, 16 then in Division 3, which is like a little tournament with 4 pools that all come out and meet each other, which is a cool little thing.
Yeah.
And the winner of that gets into a playoff with the loser from Division 2 and tries to battle it out to get
That's
there.
all good. Yeah, I'm open to that idea. In fact, that's where it needs to go.
The way it would work is you would have as Six Nations that takes place as a Six Nations. Now they had said that they wanted the Six Nations to be awarded in April, in their little release video narrated by the soothing tones of Rupert Cox. But
yes.
He'd said in that video that the Six Nations would be awarded in April. I don't really know what he means by that. Why would you move when the Six Nations is played? What value could there be in doing that? Like there's definitely club issues, especially with European club rugby. Club rugby seems to be an afterthought right now. It's definitely being looked at from a Sansar perspective.
Yes.
Super rugby is such a basket case these days that they can just like it's always the afterthought to the national game because it doesn't make them any money.
Yeah.
Like Australia couldn't give a toss about Super Rugby because it just doesn't make them any money. They need more big games. They need some of that Twickenham money. That's what they want. And so they're willing to tear down the whole rugby calendar and Super Rugby with it if it means just getting a little bit of that Twickenham money in there. But
juicy Twickenham money.
The general crux of the tournament is you have a Six Nations played as is, then it's awarded after it ends, all fine, but then the points that are generated continue on in as part of the broader table, which involves both Euro Conference and the Rugby Championship, which takes place itself, and then everybody from the Six Nations plays everybody in the Rugby Championship, which happens in between June and November. So everybody plays 11 tests in a year, which does happen anyway. You have your 5, and then your 3 in June, and then your 3 in November.
There's no way of playing everyone, is there? Well, maybe there.
Yeah, no, 11. You have 6 in each.
Yeah, but there's no like.
What are you talking about?
We're talking about there's no way for all the Six Nations teams to play all the Rugby Championship teams in a single calendar year.
And that's what the plan is.
And how many games are each of them going to be playing then?
11.
How many games are there in the Rugby Championship?
They're changing that because there's 6 teams in it, so it's just it's a Six Nations, which has its own issues with Bledisloe, which is its own traditional series. Which would only be 1 game, which doesn't seem right.
No.
There's loads of issues with it as you break down what it's trying to do to the rugby calendar. Sorry, I keep hitting this table.
You need to stop hitting the table.
Abuse this table. Sorry, folks. Ears.
Anyone with earbuds, we'll apologise.
Anyone with ears. There's loads of issues with the rugby calendar in general in terms of this new proposed system and what it's going to do to it that are just very unresolved by their cute little video with all the
little visual aid.
It's all very nice.
Flags go here.
Flag goes here, flag goes there.
See how it was
Georgia got promoted in there,
yeah, so they did.
Yeah.
And England got all the way to the final and got to play the All Blacks where they lost.
Yeah. We didn't even make it to the playoffs. Scotland did though. Yeah, they were making calls. They were really making calls.
Yeah.
They also had Latvia going up from the 3rd division into the 2nd division.
It's past time that Latvia.
I'd say they're big tough men. Kill you. But that was a fun little.
It was a good little video. It is.
But they would also obviously the USA thing is addressed in the sense that the 2 extra teams to come into the Rugby Championship would be done on the world rankings, which would be Fiji and Japan. That said, they're still not ready to do that.
It's still a bit flawed.
It's very flawed. It's very flawed,
despite being better.
The biggest problem with it is that it doesn't address they're trying to address a number of things. What they're going for is a unified calendar, more games of consequence, tier 2 teams having an avenue through which allows the game to expand, and getting that US and Japanese money, and obviously more games of consequence for Australia against countries with money, with rugby money, that is, with England's and France with those big TV numbers who care about rugby. That's what if they want to solve Sansar's money issues. They want to expand the finances of the game by exploiting the markets of Japan and America. They want to unify the calendars, and they want to give tier 2 sides an answer. And this is their way of doing that.
Yeah,
I like. it's not going to happen for a number of reasons. There's huge interest in Europe. Like, I don't think any of the European unions are going to go for this.
No. We're happy with our autumn internationals the way they are.
They're happy
our
with
summer tours staying uninterrupted.
Yeah, and their domestic club sides, they're not going to want disrupted at all. This would be a major disruption. They're already feeling like they're playing too much rugby. They feel like this could devalue the Six Nations. That said, I do think promotion relegation in the Six Nations as an aside would be better than not that. But it's like they're ultimately not going to go for it. And I think there's nuggets in this deal of something that could work.
Yeah.
But it's got to be. I think it's just got to be scaled down. For now, anyway.
Yeah.
I don't feel like
12 years.
Maybe. Yeah, I don't feel like you can tear up the rugby calendar as is and replace it with this
and make it stick. Yeah.
Yeah, it just it feels like it's not going to work, and it doesn't. I just don't think it's going to get the buy-in from the unions, and perhaps not even the fans. Although maybe, but the idea that I do like is a world like what the initial proposal that we heard about back in November was, a world league that would take place in lieu of the November internationals, which are always a bit wishy-washy anyway, and they can last 5 weeks. November, like you get sides playing either side of that window.
Yeah, becoming more commonplace now as people are kind of, like you're saying, trying to do a cash grab with an extra test match.
Exactly, and this would be good financially for everybody. But I would just like a little world league to take place in November with maybe probably 4 teams per division
or whatever. Yeah,
I think that would and all done based on the rankings. So like if you were to have it right now, you'd have Ireland, England, Wales, and the All Blacks.
Tough games for every one of them there.
Tough games for every one of them. And what would you do? You'd have everyone just a round robin, even round robin, plays 3 matches. Yeah. And then would you even need a final after that? I mean, they probably want one, but you probably wouldn't need one. Just a round robin. Yeah, let's not like. Cause I don't like comic because then it's like for what would stay the same with that. But it's a good idea this because like it would mean you're playing pretty much similar to what you're doing, fixture lists to what you're doing now anyway. With probably the exception that you're playing more Six Nations teams, like Ireland will be playing Wales in that scenario, which wouldn't normally happen. But sure, look. It's a class game anyway. So you're going to play those games. You don't need to introduce a final thing. It's extra gimmicky. It's extra game. Don't do that. Yeah. Just do. If it has to be awarded, also there is a World Cup final every 4 years.
Exactly. There doesn't need to be one. There doesn't need to be one every year, and that's the argument about it diminishing the World Cup final. It doesn't have to be. Yeah. You can just have this little league and just have awards of like a trophy, obviously for each division, just for
straight promotion relegation, which would be huge. I mean, it would make them the November internationals, which are now of diminishing consequence as compared to the summer tours, which have their own dynamics and are actually anybody who describes them as a friendly doesn't know what they're talking about. Like there's huge value in winning a series against a team. That's like there is massive value in that. Not to mention
history as well. Like it would also the history of touring and things is something that I really don't want rugby to say goodbye to. Despite professionalism and all that. Like
and one of the things that they had said like about this World League they proposed is that basically the tours are gone except the Lions tour. Yeah, which is like that's my least favorite tour. I was going to say it's like that's a minority opinion, but it is ours. Like that we actually like the regular old tours. Like Ireland going to Australia last year was
great,
brilliant.
France getting shellacked in New Zealand,
and the South Africa England series
was brilliant as well.
But so like, there's huge value in those, and not to mention the fact that it would leave a window open for sides to arrange matches with each other. The June series, maybe one side or other of the test window, which would give the opportunity for teams like Georgia and Fiji to get matches, which they could incorporate. Like they have to play one tier one side a year. Yeah, that's necessary. Like when you watch Georgia or New Zealand play or USA play, like those sides get a lot out of the World Cup when they do get to play at that level for a little bit, but it'd be nice to see them get just a little bit of that feeling,
a little bit once a year or so, just to get
But then in the meantime, like what would happen then in November with your divisions is like not only would you have that intrigue in the top division, if you had straight promotion relegation, you would have colossal games like if Ireland and let's say it's Ireland England for the wooden spoon in that division to go down into the other tier, like that's a loss of revenue, a loss of interest. But it's obviously the second division; it'd still be well watched.
Yeah,
because it's South Africa, Australia, Argentina, and I think Argentina would even be down. As
Argentina would be in third division now.
And going straight up.
Yeah,
but then that third division would have all kinds of intrigue as well. And one side is going to get relegated from 2 down to 3. Maybe that's Scotland, and then all of a sudden
maybe it's Australia.
Maybe it's Australia, and then all of a sudden they're down in the trenches with Georgia. There's opportunity. Obviously, it means that Georgia are going to get, because there's enough teams at the top level that it wouldn't just be boxed off. It's not 8 and then the rest. It's probably more about 10 and then the rest. Which means that like Georgia and Fiji are going to be in a pool with Argentina as it is now, and more likely going forward France or Scotland. Like that's going to give them opportunities to play
against good standards,
competitive rugby. Not like a friend. Like it's the test series is, as much as we're bigging up just now, like when Georgia play Ireland in November, it's of limited benefit because they're getting an Ireland that's undercooked and trying things with maybe Jack Carty at 10 or whatever it is. It's not quite the same as playing someone in a competitive match in a game of consequence. Like if they had a straight shootout with Argentina, winner goes up, loser stays down. I suspect they'd lose it, but they learn a lot.
It'd be a great game. Well, this is it. Like that, I'd see much more benefit in that. Just not least because you're not adding extra nonsense and tearing up the calendar needlessly, and you're also just catering to kind of preserve what you've got so far in the autumn series in terms of the window that's there, preserving all the seasons as is. But
introducing something that's much better than the Test internationals are right now.
Currently, because there's always one or two dud games, pretty much per team in that fixture list. There's always one or two that are like, and there's that game, and it's like certainly for the casual fan when they're around, it's it's even impossible to get them interested in it at all because there's just not.
Ireland Argentina last time out wasn't played to the intensity that
the week after was.
But if it was a truly competitive game in a tournament of consequence would have been. So that like there's all of those things to consider. I think it's a good little proposal. I really hope that they, once this thing gets shut down, that they arrive on this to my mind seemingly obvious conclusion, because that was what was initially proposed, was to have it all in November. I don't know why they're dead set on making each division 12 teams with incorporating the Six Nations and the Rugby Championship. It's all about this sort of unified calendar stuff.
Bollocks.
But you can't unify the calendar because there's the club game to consider, and there's the fact that the seasons are different.
Hemispheres. Yes. And how that works. It's
just one of those things. Like the Copa America in soccer takes place at a different time than the Euro Championships, and that's okay. That's fine. And then they all come together for the World Cup, which is great. But right now they actually have a system that works okay in Test rugby, and it doesn't, take from the clubs too much.
They should be. The only outstanding issue is November, really. Compared to the summer tours, despite there's complaints about is one team, the one set of teams are at the beginning where they're kind of a bit cold, and the other set of teams are either. The distinct difference is that the series matter to the teams more than the one-off tests in November. Exactly. If you're going to a country to play them a couple of times in a row, and like vice versa, if you're having a team over from the other side of the world to come and play you in your backyard, there's obvious
and there's a trophy at the end.
And there's a trophy at the end of it.
Like a series win in Australia is a trophy on the wall that you can be proud of for life. Like Sean Fitzpatrick beating the turf when New Zealand won the series in South Africa for the first time ever.
Great moments.
Listen, those are gone for the Southern Hemisphere teams. Unfortunately, they never tour South Africa again. But the Northern teams still get to, and that's a good thing. So it seems crazy to me that they're trying to shake up the calendar when they could just use the November window in a limited capacity. A 4-team division is so much more interesting than a 12-team division because the promotion relegation isn't just languishing Italy against emerging Georgia. You have potential to see Ireland get relegated from their division, and potential to see Scotland maybe get relegated.
England get relegated.
New
Zealand get relegated.
Probably not.
But imagine such a world where that could happen.
But then there'd be almost because the second division would be would be almost as watched perhaps as the first division.
Yeah.
Still loads of big nations. So
Still
moving
loads of
from
cool games.
1 to 2 might not be that big a drop.
Yeah,
It's
but
just frustrating that you're not in that top 4 bracket anymore. But moving from 2 to 3,
really now suddenly the alarm bells are going, and
Yeah.
you're like, oh, what's going on here?
Yeah.
And that's like all the dynamics all the way down.
all the way down. You could go as far as you want.
You could go as far as you like, but just do it in 4 blocks.
Yeah,
In
like
blocks
with
of 4.
the lower teams, it might make more sense, especially when you're talking about teams that are all over the map. If you've Uruguay and Romania and Tonga, it might make a lot more sense to get them like they used to do with the old Pacific Nations Cup. They used to just get the 6 teams into Sacramento for 6 weeks, and they would just live there and then play each other on the weekends.
Yeah,
It was a class little system. They used to have triple headers in the stadium in Sacramento in different orders every week.
Class.
But that's the kind of
like
thing
if you're doing a forward, it'd be double headers, but same kind
double
of
header. Yeah, exactly.
Could easily do that.
It's just it's not an ingenious little thing, but it seems like it would make the most sense, and it was sounding like what they were going to do when they first mentioned it in November. So it's a shame to move that this 12-team thing and the whole calendar shake-up doesn't work, and it's not going to be adopted. There's nuggets of goodness in there. The promotion relegation thing is vital. You can't just cling on to the Six Nations and the Rugby Championship as is forever, because guys are going to catch up.
Yeah.
And
you need to allow for it. The idea of thrusting the USA in there because you're tempted by the money signs is like the little cartoon character with the dollar signs lighting up in the eyeballs. It's like, no, a little more thought than that. Because it's a surefire way to kill any interest in it is to throw them in the deep end with a bunch of
merciless All Blacks
destroying them, and it's just like you're never gonna see any progress with that rate.
Poor old Taufate's try scoring rate might slow down somewhat.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, he's some man for grabbing some beat.
Isn't he?
But so that's our little kind of caveat. It's really your kind of proposal that you're putting forward.
That's just I just think it's a simple one. It was what I hoped they'd do initially, and it's I don't. If you have any comments on it, please leave them. But I don't see a downside right now to just using the November window for it, having it be more interesting. Stop with all the madness. Like they're trying to do this whole thing where it's like the sevens calendar, and they're bringing all the nations in and creating this very fluid thing where there's different trophies to be won at different levels, which is all honest good thinking. Yeah. But it can first of all completely wrenches the club game out of consideration. Like the sevens guys don't have a club team. Their nation basically is their club team. They're traveling around with playing week to week. Yeah, it's a different context. Indeed. And it's not going to work as well in that context.
Indeed.
So a shame, but it definitely, I think, ultimately progress that
they're thinking right line of thinking. They're thinking, but it's not quite right yet.
Some good things and some bad things, but the good things are good, and I'm delighted.
The thought behind them definitely is encouraging, because that it feels like sometimes World Rugby operates at the expense of the tier 2 teams, whereas this definitely feels like it's a more inclusive step.
Last week's news felt like desperation, and you had Pacific Island nations threatening to boycott the World Cup and all sorts of mad stuff. But now on this week's thing, it looks like hey, they're thinking about progression, and they're thinking about long term how they shake up the current ring-fenced system to incorporate the sides who are coming through, which is great and is going to need to be done long term.
Exactly.
But I think as a nice little compromise, having this World League, which would be similar perhaps in calibre as something like if you're Irish, the GAA League versus the All Ireland final. Like the league winner doesn't have any pretense necessarily about being the best team in the country. It's a good prestigious thing, and winning the separate divisions is good for the teams down on that level. It's a good tournament. It's great that it's there for all the counties, and as it would be for the countries, but there's no pretense about it being the same thing as the Six Nations or the Rugby Championship or the World Cup.
Indeed, and there would be no confusion with that, because you're not conflating them all together in some kind of malaise hodgepodge.
Indeed.
Yes,
indeed. Yeah, like the Six Nations points carrying over, and then it's all very strange. Isn't it, that proposal?
A bit daft. That's my day. It's like you couldn't even follow it.
It's a tough summer for Italy, isn't it?
Yeah.
After the Six Nations going and playing Argentina and South Africa, then Australia, then New Zealand.
Yeah.
And they get a game against Fiji, which they'd also lose.
Indeed. At the end of that big run. It's like, oh, delightful. But I suppose we'll probably wrap up on that one. Enough said, I think.
Yes, absolutely.
So another bit of housekeeping. Well, the America's Championship, while we're still over there.
Yeah, it has been won this week, last weekend, by Argentina 15-3. the non-capped, non-test side in it are just tearing it up to smithereens with Chile still to play, and they've got it all wrapped up. That's dominance.
Yes, it is. Yeah,
it's it's probably for the best that they're in there though. Just
to
lessons in rugby.
Yeah, that's kind of good. Like when too often when you see just a tier 2 competition like the Rugby Europe Championship, where there is one dominant force in it, but they're still a tier 2 team and they're still playing to that standard. Whereas in this, albeit yes, it's slightly boring to see Argentina not even take it seriously and still easily.
Well, it'd be like if you had the England Saxons in the Rugby Europe Championship. They'd probably do something similar. They all probably would club level test rugby.
Yeah,
well, not test rugby, but
club
professional
rugby. Yeah, and would do something similar. Apart from when they get scrumming with the Georgians.
Well, this is the national side of the Tony show.
Indeed,
Not to mention they might get shocked into Tbilisi if they had to go there and play them there.
That's true. I think that would be a fun game.
It would indeed.
England Saxons or Georgia v England Saxons in Tbilisi.
Indeed. There's a game.
Fireworks.
There's a game.
But it just colours the tournament, and it means the sides can't be forgetting what actual rugby looks like when it's played to a standard above the standard they're at right now, which is good because.
And they're also not invincible. It's not the All Blacks. They're like Canada got some purchase against them, got a few tries up in the tight, and then got exposed a little bit for their soft defence and ultimately lost. I think it was 39-23 to Argentina up in Canada. And that's good. That's
impressive. That's Argentinian hustle on the road.
Yeah,
it's good to see. And Brazil, big scrum in Brazil, managed to beat Chile.
I only saw clips of this, and I read a report that was like, what had been decent about them last week was their handling was okay. Like the South American side, certainly Uruguay, are looking almost more Argentinian. But Brazil aren't really necessarily. No. They're very much their own thing, and they were struggling to make hay with the ball.
Right.
That said, Chile, in the week of their 7-side holding South Africa to a memorable 5-5 draw in the ugliest game of sevens you could ever conceive.
I've never seen a sevens game as bad as that.
It was incredible, and that's the way the Chile boys roll. And
they kick a lot of ball because they all are footballers, really.
They had some good little plays in that vein against Brazil, and there's a noise. And they frustrated them and kept it to an interesting little scoreline. It's a negative step for Brazil for sure. But nothing too major. It's just struggling against a lower opposition. And I get the sense that Chile, when things go right for them, can be a frustrating team.
They seem to be, don't they? They're awkward. I don't quite know how to place it.
A few elbows in there, and they're probably
slide tackles, knees, slide tackles to the knee, that kind of buzz. Yeah, they're dirty.
This is a statement.
No, I'm actually just talking about their sevens team now. I'm just remembering that game because it's like, they're hilarious little footballers who literally took the ball. The first thing they did was kick it away. Something you never see in sevens, and then proceeded to tackle pretty harshly, but also when the try was eventually scored, there was a late hit.
There was loads of late hits on the South Africans in sevens, which is you
never see it. It's a weird way of playing the game,
and they've perhaps a similar identity at test level. Although I don't really know. I can't speak with too much knowledge on the Brazil-Chile game.
No, the only other game that we kind of did have a look at some of the plays from.
I watched
the game. I saw a few of the plays from it, but USA 25. Uruguay 32.
This was a brilliant game. I had the UFC, which was a great night of fighting on at the time that it was on, and I had that on the big screen and this on the small screen, and I just, as good as the fighting was at the end of the day, I'm a rugby man, and I just was like trying to watch fights. I was just watching it. It was very, very fun. The US, for all of they weren't terrible. You especially in their backline, you'd love to see. You look at their sevens team and all the absolute athletes that are in that team. Even guys like Madison Hughes is an athlete and a rugby player. But there's a little more functional nature to their backline. Their pack are pretty strong though, and they defend all right. They get when the play gets fractured, then they don't cope that well with it.
No, their scramble's not great, and their coverage when it's from counter-attacking tries, in fact, they look a little rudderless at times.
They did, but that said, Uruguay can make it.
They executed 2-on-1s properly.
They were looking entirely like Argentina. Just their hustle was great, and the high ball off the free kick. that they just won and then insta try.
Yeah.
But picking great angles.
Yeah.
Like, talk about like coming on leaps and bounds. They qualified for the World Cup for the first time the last time out, and they were, you know, out of their depth. It was basically the first time anyone, you know, from Tier 1 would have heard of Uruguay rugby in a real sense, and it was like, whoa, Diego Forlan at 10 or what's going on?
I don't know. Yeah,
it's like, and then they were hammered by everybody, but it was learnings for them, and they've come back and they have a very similar identity to what Argentina have. For a Tier 2 team, for one of the lower ranked Tier 2 teams, not for long obviously, like their catch pass is great.
It's great, yeah, and it seems to be whatever they're prioritising over there.
Quick
Skills are
and
good.
skilled, and that's a good combination.
Yeah,
it's good, great for some World Cup tries, which I'm sure we'll see in the autumn
for sure.
And it was great for some tries bagged against USA, who had some answers, but ultimately not all of them. They just stayed ahead of them.
And the Texas crowd going quiet.
Yeah, trying to get into it. Tefete was getting them into it with another hat trick, which by the by has him overtake Keith Wood as the top try scorer for a hooker. 18. Woody's was 15. He did it in 21 tests. 18 tries and 21 tests.
That is some strike where that's all black winger or Stockdale levels of conversion.
Like, he's
what
a baller. I've heard like a lot of people were giving out about and laughing at the US this week, and your man like saying, oh, he's only done it against whatever sides and he's no Keith Wood, which, you know, it's probably true. He's nobody's any Keith Wood. Maybe Keith Wood.
Keith Wood was one.
But like, so it's
a bit moot. Yeah,
it's a moot point. But there were people piggybacking on the whole World Rugby selection and going, "Oh, look how bad they are." They're actually quite a good side. They're just lacking a little bit in confidence after a great year last year, and are just a little bit
fluttering a little bit, and they were caught by a feisty and quick Uruguay team that capitalised on a few of their mistakes.
It was not
excellent.
It was not for a Tier 2 game. Like, it was not that error strewn. But it was a lot of ball in play. There was a lot of positive attacking rugby from both sides, and Uruguay got the better of it. It was a pleasure to watch, a real pleasure to watch.
Great stuff. Really good advertisement for that tournament, and just some of those teams that are up and coming from that neck of the woods. It's good to see. Like it's positive, and it is an argument for more inclusivity in that calendar. But like we were saying before, like, don't be scrapping these tournaments that are doing so well, and just utilize the autumn window to get these guys playing exposed.
Nobody's doing anything in the autumn. That's the point. They're all just playing each other in friendlies. So let's do something with that. That's going back to the previous conversation. But the people are playing things right now.
Indeed.
And they're like, you're tearing it all up. Exactly.
And this is like, they're playing competitive fixtures, and the like, I've seen a few, like, there've been some good rugby in this tournament so far. Like, in all the games, I've produced some cool moments. So it's like, why would you?
Certainly, if you're like, I know it hasn't gone as well for them this year as it did last year. Obviously, the USA. But if you're a US fan and you're in Texas going out to the local games, like, you're encouraged. You're thinking this is a hell of a way to spend a Saturday afternoon. You know, this is what I want to be doing. And
so it's a good product. So
for sure.
keep it going.
It concludes this week with a couple of, as much as you could call test matches derbies, but they are.
Well, the USA v Canada. That's a derby. That's a derby. It's a rivalry.
And
feisty one.
Uruguay v Brazil as well.
There's a feisty
Chile, Argentina, not to mention.
Yeah.
All derbies, the 3 derby games for test matches, are to wrap it up. You would expect a blowout from the Argentinian boys.
You would really.
You would expect the US to bounce back and get the better of Canada, who are
Uruguay, Brazil.
Oh yeah, I think
styles.
I think it's going to be a great game. I also think Uruguay might school them a little bit in the wide channels, just on the evidence even of just last week, but also what they've been building the last couple of years. Their skill level is great. It's nice to see skills pay off. That said, their scrum is going to struggle.
That's true.
We know that much.
So that's why it's an interesting game. It could be a slow, turgid Brazilian win, or a flashy, sexy Uruguayan win. Could be either one, and
lots of
both pictures are funny.
Indeed, a cracking tournament, and the World Rugby are doing a great job broadcasting that. It's live on YouTube and Facebook. It's just there,
so watch it.
Absolutely.
And the other one in the interest of Tier 2 is like we mentioned before, Rugby Europe Championship.
We've been big proponents of this.
Yeah.
This is more hard to find because Rugby Europe is a separate entity almost to
World Rugby. Yeah, and they have their own
the brown envelope sector.
And also very tedious with not doing highlights either. It's very often the full game that's up, so it's like it's a bit annoying. But yeah,
I actually didn't get a chance to see any of these games.
No, I managed to brush through the.
I saw the Georgian highlights.
So I saw some of the plays from the Spain-Romania game, which was the game of the round. This tournament does tend to work out such that there's one really juicy fixture in the round, and the other two are kind of a bit superfluous feeling just because of the gulf in class between some of the sides there. So in this week just gone, Belgium were at home against Georgia, which resulted in a shellacking.
The Georgian fan pages I follow, though, managed to break that game down into some highlights for me. So I managed to get to see that game's highlights, and it was good. There was a good try for that Georgian number 7 who's hanging out in the wing.
Yes,
that lad, he's very quick, very big, physical guy, and they have him out there causing carnage.
He's Gorgatza as well, isn't he?
No, that's
number 8.
Yeah,
that's right. Yeah,
geez, don't ask me his name.
Like Georgian names. We're going to support Georgia, but not by saying those names.
No, it's too damn difficult.
It is. But yeah, 46-6.
Yeah, but they had some. It was par, I'd say, for Georgia, but it was a good confidence builder. It was nice to see some variety in what they're doing. Nice to see them get a bit open and expansive and a bit crisp in their
use
passing.
The ball. That's been like it's been good progression. They seem to have recognised in the last ever since that I think that game that they played in Argentina really taught them a lot from a few years back.
Yeah,
do you remember that one?
I do.
Where they were in a great run of form and they
were actually trying to use the ball in that game. They were just less successful. They actually scored some cracking tries in that game.
Yeah, but it was like they had no control over the pace at all.
Yeah.
So there's a matter of using the ball, which they were trying to do, but it was a crazy helter-skelter Argentinian game instead of a methodical, slow but with precision in the strike, which is what they're lacking really now, because they have a mantra and a game plan that is right and they need to stick to. But what they need to be trying to work in is a clinical edge that can see them over the line.
One of the things,
tighter games.
One of the sort of variations that they have worked in is the rapid exit. So one of the things that they did so well against Spain was they had the Spanish sort of locked out in their own 22 for ages, wearing them down, and they got a score. Spain kicked off to them. Now, previously, Georgia probably would have attacked more or less the same wherever they were on the field and kicked the ball if things weren't going well. But they actually took the ball, went insta-wide to their big number 7, made huge gains, got right back into the 22 where they were, and then slowed it down. And it was like Spain were like, okay, they scored, but we're out of here, let's go. And then they were right back down.
And then Georgia were in no hurry to score again, but they were going to score again.
It's one of the worst feelings as a player when you're getting dominated and you're spending forever in your own 22, and then you get scored on, and then you're like, okay, we're getting back into this, and then like you just wake up from a haze 2 minutes later and you're exactly where you were, and you're like, what's going on? And then you're just having to make more tackles, and it's tiring.
And Georgia are experts at that game and sapping the strength, but they just need a precision in some of their wide play that it's very hard to gain any insight in by putting a score on Belgium.
That's true.
You know,
other than just not to see them.
Nice to see. Like the fact that they did that. Like, this is where, like, if it was 26-6, you'd be concerned.
Yes.
Whereas it wasn't. It was 46, and that's about par, as you say. So we roll on. We can't really judge.
The Spain-Romania match would be more consequential were it not for last year's antics.
I know
they're out of the cycle, but
it's baffling. But Spain still getting the win, 21-18, just over a kind of dogged Romania that really did want the W. They're motivated because it's like this is all they're playing for.
They have been all year, to be fair. So they've come back with a bit of a bang, but it's just not getting the W's.
No, it's not. And the Romanian rugby continues to slide a little bit. And meanwhile, Spanish rugby does seem to be in the ascendancy, and I would fully expect them to be involved in next World Cup.
Yeah, they can,
and potentially even like be competitive to a tier 2 and beyond level, just because of the rate of growth I've seen and the fact that there's 4 more years to go then before they're back in it. So
they can afford now what the robbery or whatever you want to call it, or the player ineligibility gate has afforded them now, is the ability to think long term. They have not. They don't. The World Cup is obviously so massive for these teams. They learn so much from it. They get some good revenue from it. It's huge exposure for development in the game itself.
True.
It's a blow that they're not in it, but now they can lay the foundations for building towards qualification and beyond over the next 4 years, and they can start that pretty early. And a win over Romania, not so bad. They're still kicking along.
Definitely.
I think I read somewhere they got a little luck from a key decision at a key moment, or with a try that went to the TMO or something.
Okay.
That there was contention, as there always is in this fixture.
Yes,
this is fast becoming one of the great European Tier 2 rivalries.
Indeed.
But
Spain, Romania.
Yeah.
The unlikely foes.
Yeah, indeed.
But and then other news then, Germany kind of
put up more fight than you'd ever see.
You would
from
expect,
them.
18 points to Russia's 26.
As
Russia.
big a day for the Germans as that time they were 0-0 with Samoa for 6 whole minutes of a match before losing by 50.
Yes, indeed. But so
first
it's
5 minutes
it's also
were
concerning for Russia, who do have obviously World Cup relevance now because they're managed to thrust in there. So they'll have a lot to work on off the back of that. That's probably a disappointing showing from them.
They have a game against Romania this weekend. That's a big game out in Romania.
In Romania, right? Okay.
That's a big game for both. I think Romania will be super motivated, and Russia.
Romania
That's a benchmark for Russia.
Yeah. That's probably the juiciest fixture of next week then, because Georgia at home against Germany, where I suspect Germany won't be putting up anywhere near as much of a fight as they just did, and then Spain also home against Belgium.
That's
the Spanish
that Belgium, that was the game last year that
was
threw it all into
actually
madness.
There's a little bit of intrigue is the fact that like Spain will now illustrate all the ridiculousness of it, where we'll have a nice neutral German ref and Spain will put an absolute score on this Belgian team and be able to go, you see what, and maybe it might rekindle all of that again, and we'll
I doubt it
though.
It's all water
under the burnt bridge.
So Georgia you'd expect to do Germany, Spain you'd expect to do Belgium. Georgia actually might have the liberty of squad rotation, which is a nice place to be. I guess
they often do.
They don't have the luxury of playing competitive fixtures that might actually prepare them for the World Cup in a more real way. This is a useless fixture in terms of World Cup prep for them. The last 2 weeks, it's no prep. For the Wales,
you're still going in firing a bit blind, and like what happened, like that's why the game against Italy was so interesting in that regard. And that was my feeling going into it, was that it wasn't good for Georgia, because even though Italy had gone to Soldier Field and showed up and took the money and done nothing on the pitch and been abject in everything, just for that hit out alone, they were much better and more organised and sharper the week after, whereas Georgia were a bit blunted and not to the pace of the game.
They do get to host Scotland in Tbilisi, the first time a Tier 1 team has come to Georgia, and it's all just props to the Scottish Rugby Union, because they didn't have to do that, and it's good that they've done that. They'll get a great crowd for it, and that'll be some proper prep for both sides. It's got the little intrigue. It's probably a sense of wisdom in that it's obviously nowhere near the same scale, but in terms of styles, it's Diet Ireland. So it might be an interesting thing just to trial a few ways to negate some of the things that Georgia and Ireland might do in terms of how they try and control the pace of a game and see if it works in Tbilisi, and then maybe get a feel for what they're going to do against Ireland. So it's not the worst tactical decision either to go out and play Georgia in terms of stylistically.
True, but it's also just fair play, like you're saying, more first and foremost fair play to them, because they don't have to do it. It's a risk of injuring Hamish Watson a few weeks before the World Cup in a mauling situation with some
Georgians won't be taking it easy.
No, they will not, and nor should they.
They don't know the meaning of that.
Taking it
They were
easy.
ripping English guys' heads off in front of children just a week ago.
Yes, the open training.
So desperate they are for a competitive game.
Yeah, they'll come to England to scrum on a training paddock
to punch Kyle Sinclair.
Now I can't blame them on that front at all. He's a very punchable man. But it's just an unfortunate situation for Georgia, and this is all the more reason we can just kind of hark back to the point we made earlier on, if anyone's still listening to the full contextual kind of conversation. But this proposed World League that we were thinking
be much better for Georgia.
Much better for Georgia, where it could be in a division with 3 other similar caliber teams.
They're in a position
playing fixtures.
Yeah, they're in a position right now where in that empty November window they play one fixture usually.
Yeah.
They don't even bother making a tier 2 fixture. There's no value in it.
Indeed.
So
what's the point in all that?
It's that's the point. That's the broken window. Just fix that, and we've said it.
Yeah. So we should pivot on.
We need to
bring,
talk about Super Rugby.
We do.
Quickly anyway.
We need to be quick though, because it's been a long one again. We're getting creeping on long and late.
Are we gonna? This might break the record. Listen, sorry guys, and sorry to Super Rugby fans. We'll do a better effort of covering your, especially post Six Nations. We'll definitely have that relief to do that.
Definitely, yeah, definitely. It'll be taking precedence later. But in terms of like, even in scheduling it as a news thing, like Super Rugby in week 3 isn't quite the entity that it is in the later seasons, and like knowing that. Sure, it was kind of the first time we saw a lot of the Hurricanes back and finally looking a bit like the Hurricanes team.
They looked great. I only got a chance to see really the highlights of all of these games. It's the first time that I've ever not actually managed to see any Super Rugby of a weekend. Like that's just it's been busy times, but that's a frustrating point. We will make a better effort of getting on it as the times go by. Yeah. That said, in terms of just from a news point of view, breaking down what happened, I saw all the highlights obviously, and the Canes doing a serious job on sort of putting water on that Brumbies fire. And the Brumbies coming up with some classic last year Australian conference plays in the losing of that game. Some of the turnovers, like there's no need to cough it up in such a spectacularly bad fashion, as they all kind of were. There were pretty catastrophic howlers that led to gifted tries. And that being said, Hurricanes looked. They play with a lot of pressure and pace, and then they exploit every mistake.
Yeah, they pounce on the errors.
That was like it's been almost a haze so far in Super Rugby in terms of just seeing New Zealand teams outside of the Crusaders not really look like New Zealand teams at all. Yeah, just look like floundersome, throwy ball around, kick-a-belly boys. Whereas the Hurricanes properly looked like old school last few years New Zealand conference teams that are just not taking any nonsense from any Australian teams. Indeed. And they're punishing all of it. That was literally a case of that, because there was a hell of a lot of nonsense in some of those plays, like the very last one, the last try in the last play where he goes to deck and then haphazardly fires it back in and it bounces off. Interplay between Pocock and I didn't see who it was, the big second row, who when he was just passed it behind him, and your man's reaction was just to bat the ball forward comically right into the path of Dane Coles, who looked so great to see him back. I just hope his head holds up. He still has that pace. And actually the second try he got in the corner was just a great play from him from start to finish, because he got the ball in the wide channels, held it up, drew the man perfectly, gave the pass, and then he hit your man goes hit the ruck like a man possessed, cleaned him out, but also cleaned him out in such a way that lengthened the ruck, and Piranara recognised that, went back that way, and that was where the try was. Pocock for a fool there as well. He did. You can see, give a great little highlight clip of Pocock's head just turning away, and actually doesn't get eyes on TJ until he's way back there. Yeah. Absolutely done. And TJ, by the way, looking sharp. Assist man, looking great. Sharp. All black credentials all over that boy. Very, very good player. Really, really very good player. Yeah, no, the Hurricanes looking scary. Actually firing warning shots. I'm gonna in response to Unbiased Rugby, hello, because we know you've been watching Super Rugby as well, and we did mean to reply to you. We don't know in terms of who's going to make the playoffs. Crusaders and Hurricanes are pretty much my first two names from the list. Well, you're starting the South African conference is a whole other kettle of worms. Well, this is my dream. Is I can't shirk the fact that it's going to be Crusaders and Hurricanes. Yes. And then I'd like it to be the Bulls and the Jags. The Bulls and the Jags. I like the Sharks as well. The Sharks got a lot of criticism for that game against the Stormers, which was allegedly not that good a game. 16-11 defeat at home. That's pretty tame for a side that started. But then that always happens with the SAFA conferences. They take scalps off each other, and it's very hard. This is why it's such an argument against rugby maths in that regard. Yes, the South African conference, your mind is broken. Exactly, you can't the Jags are as bad as anyone for that. They are, they throw spanners in the work that way as well. So the Jags never beat
Was it? The Jags can't beat the
Lions.
Lions, but they always beat the Bulls.
Who
But
just
the
beat the
Bulls can
Lions.
just beat the Lions in the line, and it's all that kind of stuff happening all the time, all season
Meanwhile,
long.
the Sharks look class, and then they lose to the Stormers,
Yeah,
who got
and
hammered
the
by the
Stormers
Lions.
got hammered on week one,
Hammered
but
by
then
them,
by the Bulls, and then now they're actually competent. Look.
To be fair,
Yeah.
the Stormers, it entered the easiest way to judge this is to look at who's playing in these teams. On paper, the best team is the Bulls, with Dwayne Vermeulen back.
That's what I feel as well.
Coming through, Pollard, Jesse Creel. I mean, there's a lot of proper players. Your
historical precedent tells me that they mess it up somewhere along the line.
Well,
then
that's recent history.
Yeah.
I mean, there are the most successful franchises. They only said over one thing in the Brian Abana days, and you know that's like the like when the Lions have been successful. It is actually it was a game changer when they first started to play with their expansive rugby and Yankees came in and everything else, but it was also indicative of a time in South African rugby where they weren't quite themselves and they weren't doing things right and they weren't getting any trophies. So having the Bulls back with a proper identity of physical rugby is a good thing, and I'm the big picture is going to be when the Bulls like you're gonna see a clear leader emerge when they start playing the teams from Australia and New Zealand. That's going to be the curious pictures to come. And the Sharks, who I had optimism over, Nathaniel Am bagged another try. He's a very good player, but they're getting a lot of criticism. The catch pass apparently just isn't there, despite everything. Like, they have good physicality, they're good defensively, they're relatively structured, but just general attacking shape is not what it should be.
Fair enough. It could be like it's still early days. That's stuff that can get sharper with time. But if that's still a very tame warning sign of a home defeat early doors. So hard to say.
It definitely puts.
It's certainly not something to be glossed over.
No,
it'd be more like picked apart at this time and a few bollockings dished out because they're richly deserved.
They just personnel wise as well. They haven't got like superstars there. They've got Kerwin Bosches and a bit of hustle. I always liked the Sharks, but I don't know if they're playoff material. Where the Bulls on paper certainly are
and should be, and that's why it's a perpetual disappointment to see them flounder and throw results away, and enough of them to add up to not making the playoffs, which is a very annoying thing.
It seems crazy.
Or like make the playoffs just put in an impossible scenario where you're going to the Crusaders or something.
Getting it done in a controlling, domineering fashion and then scoring the late Gloss-giving try against the Lions in Ellis Park is a statement. That's a statement-worthy behaviour.
Optimistically, it could be a bit of a sea change that Razzie's already ushered in, kind of filtering the Lions out of the bag. The Lions that were filtered into the national team kind of got filtered back out.
I tell you, one of the stories from that game was Malcolm Marks getting outplayed by Skalk Brits. The unageable man, Skalk Brits, who was just eternally been a baller, is definitely going to be in the mix. He's
got to be in the conversation. He's never put a foot right.
Surely over Bongi and Bonambi.
Yeah, possibly actually. After some of that shenanigans.
Well, we know Razzie's not a fan.
Razzie's not a huge fan, no. So no, he's definitely in there. I mean, like, he's such a quality rugby player. He's closer to the Keith Wood model than your man, that American lad.
He is.
He's just consummate baller, can play all the positions, probably can kick it if it comes to it as well, knows the options.
100%.
Yeah, he's definitely a quality operator, but it was an interesting game. I'm very happy to see the Lions lose at home because they've been an eternal problem.
And I tell you what, there's a weird thing with them as well, where they're playing. Like, the thing that frustrates you about the Lions, there's a few things. First of all, they were the makeup of that terrible
Springbok
Alistair Coetzee Springbok team that damaged the reputation of the Springboks, lost games by comical amounts, and were all over the place, higgledy-piggledy, bad halfbacks, bad everything.
Well, from an Irish point of view, I just remember them coming to Dublin in November and losing 38-3. And 3 points of which they kicked at 14-0 down into the second half. And I'm just like, what am I looking at here? I'm watching the Springboks. What's going on?
And they 57-0 against the All Blacks at home as well. It's something else. And but they are... They also made Super Rugby playoffs with crazy fixture lists, a load of home games, never having to go to New Zealand, with a massive home advantage of being at altitude.
Yeah.
It all just felt tiered for them.
Yeah.
And again, I'm looking at them this week. They've got 2
It
losses
annoys
already,
me. Yeah,
but they're playing the Jags at home, having already played the Jags
and won in week 1.
It's week 4 and they're playing them again.
Strangling someone.
Go to the Crusaders and lose.
Yes, for God's sake. That is way past you. Go get over there. To be fair, they did that last year in the final.
I know, but it's like
I know. It shouldn't come to all that every year. They should be.
They just play a game outside your conference that isn't against the Rebels.
Yeah, albeit the Rebels could be cheeky for them this time.
The Rebels could be, but they're an outside shout for the Aussie conference.
They are.
They had a win over the Highlanders.
Which is a big scalp for them. To be honest, in the context of Rebels history, that's pretty huge.
They look a decent team.
They do. It looks like a good plan. Hoovering up.
Quaid is working. I tell you what,
he's looking
making
more
plays.
Tony Cipriani than Quaid.
Very
Again,
much.
He's just kind of calmly doing his job a bit better and still bringing those techers to the fore. He had a lovely tip-on pass for
Jack
one
Maddox.
of the tries.
And Maddox is another quality player.
Yeah. Proper finisher. He's a really good winger. Just gets it down more often than not. Also shout out to we mentioned earlier on, but Dane Coles for his absolute winger's finish as well. That try is what, love it.
Incredible.
Yeah, he's just a phenom. But the Rebels. Really exciting this year. They just look competent, which is great to see. Because it's just been for too long. The Aussie conference has been anything but competent, and too many plays that are not even rugby plays. Just terrible stuff.
I tell you, I'm looking at Brad Thorne, and I'm thinking the Rebels have become this great team. I'm thinking this could have been you guys when you took over. You could have built this team that's being built now by the Rebels. Could have assembled these players. Could have got Carmichael Hunt and kept him in there. You've instead opted to go Root. Grunt and
to be fair, not entirely. Like the halfback they have there, I keep forgetting his name, but his new number 9 is a bit of a baller and plays fairly quickly.
I got it.
It's not all at the
he
expense.
bungled the management of Quaid in particular.
I think he wanted Quaid out for other reasons that are not necessarily rugby related all the time. And I do think he was wrong in that regard. But that being said, I'm actually encouraged by the Reds too. In what I'm seeing this year compared to the end of last year, I feel like there is a bit of growth. It's definitely a different identity, but I'm not necessarily sure it's for the worse. And do you know why? Again, competence is the word I'm looking for. I'm not even in the Aussie rugby. I'm just looking for competence before even competitiveness. I'm looking for competence because for too many years we weren't getting either. And so much inept rugby, the kind of plays you'd never even dream of seeing because they're so bad that everyone knows not to try this thing that you just tried, and now it's another try, and even hat tricks for all the boys, all the New Zealand boys getting hat tricks every week. It's like Lau Mape's in for 3. Why did that happen?
No, I hear you, and it's they're definitely improvement across the board in the Aussie conference seems to be the crack. Although the Brumbies, for all of their optimism, are like the loosest of all the Aussie teams.
What actually seems to have happened as well, because the Aussie conference is one thing, but in New Zealand conference, the Brumbies' false dawn was due to the Chiefs, who have really fallen off a cliff now. They look rubbish.
Home defeat against the
Sunwolves.
This is what happens, though. I mean, I think we can put this one at the feet of the money, the interests in Europe, who took what was a very good Chiefs team and broke them up. But there's also some weird stuff going on where there's a load of out-halves playing in other clubs. I think the Highlanders have 3 very competent out-halves on the bills. They have Bryn Gatland, Marty Banks, and Ioane as well in there. And that's 3 very competent Super Rugby level 10s. And Bryn Gatland's errors at the weekend notwithstanding.
Didn't go too well.
And what the Chiefs have is DMAC out of position. That's just one symptom of that's a strange one. In terms of New Zealand are actually usually quite good at spreading their players out in such a way that everyone's getting good game time.
They have something of a draft system going on usually, but that seems to be an oversight, all right.
And the Chiefs, I don't know how many players, you could list off that whole team. Obviously Leonard Brown wasn't playing at the weekend. He's one survivor, DMAC's another. But Carvalho,
Cruden's in Montpellier. Where's Carvalho? He's La Rochelle.
La Rochelle,
James Lowe's here.
James Lowe's in Leinster. Dave Rennie is in Glasgow.
Dave Rennie's in Glasgow.
Your man Keane was in Connacht. The assistant to Dave Rennie was in Connacht, and he was gone. Liam Messam is travelling the world.
I think he's in La Rochelle as well.
He was last year. I don't know if he still is.
Maybe not. Yeah.
But yeah,
the list goes on.
This is Dominic Bird.
Dominic Bird. He's in France now as well.
Yeah, he's in France now as well. Michael Leach obviously gone. Sam Kane is still there, but he's not around at the moment.
Brody's still there.
Brody's still there.
Japan are hounding him to come after the World Cup.
So I mean, it's just the whole team has fallen apart. That great Chiefs team that put it up to the Satyrs a couple of years ago
played a beautiful brand, and it seems to be all in the past now.
So it is, it's all young guys who are deers in headlights. And the Sunwolves, to be fair, with Tony Brown, very smart guy in charge. Yeah, that's like
competent. They have a few processes. They've done some work in the off season, and they're executing.
Caught in the opening day by the Sharks, caught by some good play from the Sharks, but there were some positives last week, and there are more now. Obviously, after an away
that's
victory.
Like the biggest win of their franchise history.
Oh yeah,
I'm certain of that. Saying that, massive win in New Zealand.
And never looked in doubt.
Never at all. No, they were better from start to finish. They were
maintained the lead the whole way through. Yeah, Chiefs not laying a glove. So it's all set up now for very interesting times, perhaps in all conferences. But that said, the Kiwi conference, even though the Highlanders are still up there at the moment, it looks to my mind very like the Hurricanes and the Sailors are going to pull away very quickly.
Right. Yeah.
And be the top two in that conference.
So yeah, they look. Standard wise, just looking at them on the pitch, they look that level above, closer to international than the rest of all of the tournament. With the exception of maybe the Bulls, if the Bulls can get going.
Well, I think
hopefully the Jags, if the Jags can get going. Well, listen, but I don't believe it.
I don't know if I do either. The Bulls are still not the Springboks.
No,
they're good, but I think it's probably it looks like Crusaders to be the winners again, and perennial pretenders, their Hurricanes to be nipping at their heels.
Yeah, and driving the standard.
That said, when Bodie comes back, the Hurricanes are going to go up another level again.
That's exactly right. We still haven't seen it. That's why I was reserved. That's why it was so tough to say after 2 weeks or 3 weeks of Super Rugby action who's going to be in the finals. It's very kind of up in the air, with the exception of just saying that the Crusaders
and the unfortunate reality that the Blues will probably not be there. The Blues, our little video from the other
Blues
week,
will be scrapping it up with the Chiefs though now, in terms of not being propping up the ball.
I'd back them to do this Chiefs team, to be honest with you, to beat them, but our little video. Are the Blues back?
Are the Blues back?
As aged like milk in the sun?
Indeed, The answer is yes. They're back and doing the same things as ever. Yeah. Losing games.
The Sean Fitzpatrick era is long gone.
It really is.
But they're. I mean, a tough loss. It was always a tough game. That first game against the Sailors, they lost. Who was it they played in round two?
They lost to.
Who were they at? They were. The Sharks away
in South Africa,
which is a tough one. And then away to Argentina, and it's like starting with that game against the Satyrs at home with a very big crowd in Eden Park
and playing so well,
and that fans would have left the stadium that day feeling optimistic, and the next time their team are home, the season is gone. They're 0-3 in the Kiwi Conference. That's a death sentence.
Yes, it is. Pretty much.
It's a tough one for them, but like that said, they couldn't go and get the W, which is what you got to do.
You can't complain when you lose the game.
No. Tight scoreline over there. They, like as always is the case with the Blues, they have some good plays, but the legs of play of panic, that kick straight to the path of Moyano.
Oh dear, Moyano just going,
just
couldn't even believe his luck, because it was a horrendous kick.
Those are the kind of plays that just
break your heart.
The winning teams don't do.
It doesn't even occur to them to do
that. The Blues do, because they're just so panicked and they're just not used to being there. And it's another frustrating one. There's a lot more positive about them. They can still play some good footy, and I suspect they will get the better of the Chiefs. It was a tough one for them for sure.
What do you want to just run through the games that are coming up this weekend? The
big games of round 4 this week. We open on Friday morning, Friday evening if you're down there south. The Hurricanes against the Highlanders at home. Traditionally a spicy enough game. The Highlanders will be doing well to stay in this one.
I think so. Yeah, the Highlanders are looking very stuttery at the moment. They're not very gelled at all.
They don't even know who their 10 is.
Yeah, nothing's cohesive about what they're doing. The Hurricanes are kind of timing their season pretty nicely. It feels like they're actually kind of motoring along, bringing people back at a very natural kind of progression while maintaining a good system, being lethal off counter-attack as well. So any kind of early season coughing up of ball can be easily exploited and turned into points, especially at home. So looking forward to a Hurricanes win.
That's I just stadium. Where was that stadium?
Forsyth Bar, is that what?
No, Forsyth Bar is the Highlanders' home ground. They went out to the name escapes me at the moment. They went out to a town just a good bit north of Wellington in the North Island, and they it was a brilliant stadium. Brilliant for that Hurricanes game last week. It was a brilliant stadium, and just a refreshing contrast to the misery that is the Cake Tin. And do it more often, Hurricanes. Wellington be damned.
No, you're right. I don't like the Cake Tin as a stadium either. And like in terms of Super Rugby as well, it always just annoys me to see like
those empty yellow chairs.
It's less so in the New Zealand conference that I'm guilty of. It's
just that, like, Forsyth Bar is great. The Crusaders venue is great. Chiefs always have a good crowd, and Eden Park has its issues as well. But it's a good stadium, but they don't fill it. It was great on the opening weekend, but by far the Cake Tin is the worst. It's also the ground where the All Blacks tend to lose if they do lose at home. Cake Tin, it's a problematic.
There's like nothing good about that stadium.
Wales beat Ireland there, and when the World Cup was over there as well. Cake Tin, bad stadium,
bold stadium.
But
it's also the concept is better. Do a smaller stadium and fill it. Don't do a big stadium where a decent crowd is lost in it. That's something the South African conference needs to change more so than anything. If the colour of Super Rugby is to change, and if that picture on my TV of a Saturday morning is to change, it has to start with the Saffas moving out of the massive stadiums into nice sized stadiums where you can get a 10,000 crowd and it feels loud and good and full.
And then you'd actually understand the benefit that an atmosphere can give to a team.
Indeed, but then you'd have to sit next to people, and they don't seem to do that.
No, they don't.
Because that's another thing I don't understand. Like when Edinburgh on this side of the equator play a lot of their games in Murrayfield now, and have done for years, and very often those games are attended in a comparable manner, very poorly compared to the massive capacity of the stadium. So you get maybe 5,000 people in, and they're dotted around, but like not dotted in that context. Like we've been to a game like that. They huddle together, and it's like the same little part of the stadium where all of them are, and then the rest of the stadium's empty. But not in South Africa. In South Africa, it's like we have 5,000 people here, and they're all just dotted around.
With 5,000 people, there's 50,000 in the ground. So that means there's 10 chairs per person.
So I'll use these are my 10.
These are my 10,
and then that's
you stay out of my 10 chairs.
Get away from my 10 chairs. It's so weird. I don't know. I don't understand.
I get to put my drink on this chair, and I get to put my shoes on this chair.
The flag goes here.
Of course, little border wall around the edge of my 10 chairs to make sure nobody gets in. It's mad, that setup. It's probably the worst thing about Super Rugby is the atmospheres can suffer in some venues. Forsyth Bar is still great.
Yes, it is.
But
and that little stadium that in Australia, where were they playing? It was
it when the Taz moved out of I can't remember the name
of that stadium too, but it was good.
The stadium in Perth used to be great. But the big games of the weekend. Rebels playing the Brumbies. That'll be a good one to watch. It'd be good to see the bit. I'd like to see a statement from the Rebels.
I would love to see it. Well, you just similar to my thing with the Lions. You and the Brumbies just don't see eye to eye at all.
It was very similar Brumbies performance, when the only bit of positivity they got was one of those line out mauls. They managed to get one of those line out mauls. They always revert to type when things go wrong. They're all their pretense, but they're still loose and poor this year. They're not doing anything.
Crusaders Chiefs.
That's a bloodbath.
That is a bloodbath in what is normally a very juicy fixture. This is actually going to be.
It's going to be sad to see those Chiefs jerseys look so impotent against the ruthless Crusaders.
But that's exactly what's on the cards come Saturday morning.
Blues playing the Sunwolves. Sunwolves going for back-to-back
back-to-back wins in New Zealand, and it's on. It's absolutely on.
Gee, and the Blues.
The Blues, come on!
They need a win.
You need to get off the mark. Sunwolves, it's a layup. God damn it, it's a layup.
I wonder what kind of crowd they'll get in Auckland after the deflating last couple of weeks.
Yeah, I don't
know
if
anywhere
they
near
will.
the opening day.
Would it be? You'll be hearing Sunwolves chants. Could you imagine such a world?
Well, they have their travelling faithful.
Yeah.
Taz v Reds is a game already
Taz
being
v Reds.
described as on this weekend.
Saturday. Another one with Australian conference credentials. I would quite like to see the Reds do that.
Well, Taz coming off a bye. Taz have promise as well. Carmichael Hunt and their Iceman Bernard Foley missing winning kicks, but they've got. I
just get annoyed. They have different reasons for the Taz though. I just don't like the Aussie unions emphasising the Taz overly and at the expense of others. So I quite like seeing them getting taken down a peg or two here and there. Just out of my own selfish
down all
malice.
the pegs, man.
Yeah.
They don't have any pegs left.
No, it's true. But they do have Izzy Folau. He's quite a peg.
And Curtly Beale.
Yeah.
No, listen, they can still play ball.
This is it.
And I would tip the Waratahs.
I think the Waratahs are going to win it. I would like to see the Reds put up a good performance and make it a competitive game, but I suspect the Taz may win by closer to 10 or 15.
Lions v Jags is a disappointing fixture, and I'd hope that the Jags do it. They won't.
They won't.
Yeah,
they won't win.
Not against the Lions in Ellis Park.
Sure, they didn't do it in Buenos Aires either. Yeah, it's just mad that this game's happening again so soon.
Yeah,
like
crazy.
What is going on?
The Lions don't ever get to leave South Africa. Well, they do play the
Sunwolves are back to back in New Zealand and they're doing bloody well with it. And meanwhile, the Lions are playing the Jags twice,
and they still have 2 losses. They've lost every game that hasn't been against the Jags.
It's true. Yeah.
Then the big game of the weekend for the South African Conference is between Messers 1 and 2, Bulls v Sharks.
Yeah, and that is a tasty fixture. I would like that. That is a good one because the Sharks will look to bounce back.
The Sharks have some good defensive hustle. They'll cause them problems.
Yeah.
Against Creole is the big matchup.
That's
there.
a good matchup. Yeah. See, this is it. There's all kinds of Springbok kind of credentials on show. And little kind of World Cup problems and conundrums that are being explored. Yeah. So that's why it's interesting. The SAF conferences and the derbies they're in are going to be interesting. Yeah. Not just for superhero jerseys.
Yeah, exactly. And while the superhero jerseys are interesting, we're 4 rounds in now. I'm sort of getting into it. I'd be excited to see some non-domestic matchups for the South African teams, which is yet to happen. When are they going to start playing some Kiwi teams? Those are the fixtures I want to see. So hopefully. I'm just going to click into round 5 and see what that is. What's going to happen?
Unveil some of that. Stormers, Jags.
No. Dirt.
Not happening.
When are the South African
teams? The Lions get to play the Rebels though at home. Woo. Yeah.
Come on, Quaid.
Come on, Quaid. Quaid. Rooting for Genia hat-trick. Yeah.
Oh my god, that's ridiculous. I know, the Lions have no hard games ever.
It's so silly. It does undermine the tournament quite a bit because it just feels ridiculous. Really. It does. It's like compared to someone.
Guess what the game after is? Sunwolves. We're just podcasts on hold. Not that anyone's still going. We're still going for some reason, but I'm just gonna keep looking at the Lions fixtures.
Yeah.
They
all
ever
the way
have
down.
A hard game, the Lions, and then they have a bye week because you would need a rest.
You would need
after all that.
Yeah. Are they in New Zealand at all this year?
Well, I'm down to round 8 and they've yet to play a Kiwi team. Home against the Sharks, then in round 8. This is unbelievable. Away against the Brumbies. That's their first trip to Australasia. Other than the Sunwolves, away against the Brumbies in round 9. Get to round 10 and they're away against the Chiefs. Can you believe it?
They are going to New Zealand, but it's worked out
Crusaders,
well.
round 11. Round 11.
Well,
mark it in the calendar, boys. 26th of April. Okay. That's the day to watch.
Yes.
The Lions have to go to
Crusaders. That's good. Yeah. At least there's that happening. They are going to New Zealand this time.
And I tell you what, they're going to if I don't know if the fixture list continues, but they'll struggle to make the playoffs to keep dropping points domestically with the trip to come later in the season.
It's true. I do feel there's been a tapering off in that, like a bit of a sea change. I would like to see the Bulls and the Sharks kind of take the reins a bit and try and spearhead something with the Lions still fully capable of try and rediscover some of that form, because then suddenly if you have 3 of them firing, then you're rolling into the World Cup with a lot of optimism and a lot of good headaches about selection and stuff, and it just never helps to have one dragging them along. And
listen, that's Super Rugby, and I think we're going to leave it there.
We are going to park it.
It's difficult. I know there's Pro 14 stuff, and you've got to give huge props to Treviso. Watch that game; thought it was great. But as we prove with our rambling ways, until we get a little more focused, it's going to be very difficult to get everything covered every week.
Yeah,
and
we apologise for that.
We apologise for it. It's one of those ways. I'm sure there was nuggets of goodness and badness in this show, but we do go on, don't we?
Yeah, and we try and get into as much depth as we can, and then.
On everything.
Well, that's the point. We're trying to give something context, because that's the point of the show.
Joe Rogan goes 3 hours. I guess we can do that
too. That's kind of the format. We do that long form rugby chat, and anyone who's still here, thanks very much for listening.
Thank you, guys.
We'll see you again for
That was a marathon, wasn't it?
Yeah. You're on ball.
Yeah, that's yeah.
It's a long one, eh?
All right.
Good shot.
Close.
Good shot.
You got it. You got it. Now I hope the camera shows that, because you nailed it.